Hey guys, it's Standing for Truth here. I've got some friends, some atheists, some creationists here. We're going to start it off. Just a little discussion back and forth here with Ron, Matt, and Immutable Destiny. I'm just going to make it a respectful back and forth discussion. I've also got scientist Sam, Jeremy, Nephilimfree, and Crispr here as well. So thanks for coming on, guys. And we will just start off with just a brief introduction from Matt, and kind of go from there. Matt, thanks for coming on. Go ahead, brother.
Awesome, thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I really don't know the crowd too well. I don't know Immutable Destiny at all, so hopefully he can fill me in on himself a little bit. That would be great. I haven't slept, so I'm kind of tired. I'm probably tired. So, yeah, I guess I got into starting making creationist videos and documents and writing on the subject because I've been really fascinated about the subject and like it. And I've never really wrote on the subject much itself. I'm more of a colloidal biologist and a nutritionist. I really got into gerontology because I like the aspect of longevity. My website is rawmat.com. It's not run by me, so if anyone wanted to contact, don't waste your time there. You could probably just find my YouTube channel at Seek Knowledge. An herbalist. I've studied every known system on Earth. They're fascinating. I published some books that you can find on Amazon. One's called Veg Vitality. One's called Raw Muscle. I'm a microscopist. I wrote a book called Never Age, which is available on the Eternal Life Fan Club. It's about extreme longevity. I also have another one that's called Dominant Health. And I have a book called Journey Enter that's an educational tool for the Essene Esoteric Knowledge online school that they use to teach other people. Basically, if anybody wants to read any of these things, don't bother purchasing them. Just ask, and I'll put the links down here. Standing can add them wherever he likes. I'm certified through the NFPT from Eric Weaver, which allowed me to be a personal trainer for a while. That was great. I came up with a cure for Lyme disease, chronic Lyme disease anyway, because if you catch it early enough, just antibiotics can knock it out. It's called Limicide. And I was a professional cage fighter up until 2006. I retired, and now I just coach and train people on the side for that. My specialty is linguistics and genetics. So I love that field the most. But I'm willing to talk on any subject. So if you want to bring up the flood, if you want to talk about pretty much any subject, feel free, because I want to be able to, if I can't answer something, I want to learn about it. So that should do it for me.
Awesome. Well, thanks for that, Matt. Once again, thanks for coming on. Immutable, I guess if you want to just tell him a couple little things about yourself so he's a little more familiar with you, and then we'll just kind of go in from there.
Sure. I'm a senior undergrad student studying biochem. Just a dude chilling on the internet, talk to people. That's cool. That's whatever.
Awesome. Well, it's good when all us dudes can come together and have a good, respectful discussion here. I named the discussion up to this point atheistic evolution or biblical creation. So maybe to kind of get into it, I know just the word evolution in general can probably mean very different things to many different people, right? Change over time or change in allele frequency in populations over time, whatever it is. Just so we're on the same page, maybe we can have some common ground here. Raw, Matt, Immutable, did you guys want to give your idea, your definition of evolution, and then kind of just go back and forth from there and see what you agree on with that and what you don't agree on with that? Go ahead, Raw, Matt, you can start it off if you want.
Yeah, sure. Evolution should mean simply one thing in dealing with biology. Frequencies of allele changes and adaptations, but we know the word evolution means many different things, and it kind of covers a lot of different fields. That's why the word consilence exists. There's a field that they kind of just want to prove evolution through every field that there is, and that's how they actually try to prove it, is because they use the fossil record, they use the geological column, and they say, see how everything is put together, and that helps us prove evolution that much more. So if they can use that, then I believe that we can use that as well.
Sure. I mean, I think the only point is that you're making an equivocation fallacy. It's not that we use like paleontology and other things like that to confirm evolution. It's that those fields, independent of themselves, happen to confirm evolution for us. It's more so the fact that different fields support evolution independently of the theory itself. which is more reason to suspect that it's true. But yeah, change in allele frequency over populations over successive generations, that's a fine definition. Another definition that's functionally equivalent is, I'm trying to remember how it goes, descent with inherent modification, which is an important aspect to include for evolution. But yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement with that.
Nice.
So I think at that point it would probably come down to, I mean, to me, maybe Ramat agrees, maybe Immutable agrees, but the major issue is probably the cause of this type of change, right? Let's just say it sounds like we all agree that biological evolution means a change in allele frequency in populations over time. Evolutionists, and maybe Immutable can correct me on that, they would say that this cause, though, is an unguided process of what natural selection acting upon random variation, random mutation, versus, say, Ramat, who might say there are limits to the change, natural selection, mutations are not a creative mechanism. Like, where would that difference be between you guys? Go ahead, Matt, if you want to give your thoughts on that.
Oh, sorry, what?
What do you think? What's the limits that give you guys that, differing view? Obviously, you agree in change in allele frequencies, but does this change in allele frequencies have a limit, right? Like, what do you guys disagree on in regards to that?
Changes to allele frequency causes.
Nephilim, I'm not asking you.
This is a free for all, remember? That was the deal.
This conversation is between me and Ramat.
Okay, we'll keep it. Okay, for now we'll keep it
for all, remember?
Okay, Jeremy, I'm going to mute you real quick, brother, just so you're not interrupting. We're going to keep it with Ramat and Immutable for now. Go ahead, Ramat. How do you feel about processes of natural selection, mutation? Do you believe there's a limit to it, or do you believe that universal common ancestry is the best explanation for, say, the biodiversity of life? Go ahead.
Yeah, I would just say that the only real difference between a creationist in any field, I think, from what I've read even online, is that it stops when something changes into something else. So a lizard becoming a fish, or a fish becoming a land mammal, for example, like that's where the line gets drawn. But as far as a fish adapting to the cold, things like this, these are reasonable. These are reasonable things, like going in the sun and being tan, or epigenetic adaptations to things. These are what creationists believe, but it ends with speciation, coming something new, like obviously not a mule, but that's what I believe.
I'm not sure necessarily like what that change is rooted in. Certainly, it's not rooted genetically or phylogenetically. And we've seen, and like the fossil record, if you accept it, is demonstrated that there's been several reptile to mammal, there's been several transitions within the history of organisms, but if you don't choose to accept them, that's your choice.
Well, Dr. Colin Patterson, who is an evolutionist, and he owns more fossils than any human in the world, even in his book, the second edition of Evolution, he said, I fully agree with the comments that there's a lack of evolutionary transitions in my book. And if I knew of any of them at all, living or not, I would have put them in my book. And I
believe the context of that book is referring to a specific clade. I believe it's Cnidarians. It's referring to a specific type of oceanic transition. That's a relatively common quote mine, but I believe he's referring to a specific type of ancestry that was supposed back in, what is it, the 80s, I think?
Yeah, about 88. Yeah, exactly. But I was just curious, because I figured if he had most of the fossils in the world, then he would just be able to supply some form of evidence. But yeah, you're right. This is quite a while ago, so that's understandable.
Yeah, I would kind of, and it's not to say like that, like you have the full quote, but I would probably need to see the full quote to parse that out. because there seem to be like some points where it's like, okay, that's a reasonable claim for the time, but sometimes where it's saying something completely different.
Right, right. I would also say that we have a concept that we go by, which is called irreducible complexity, where, like, take our digestion, for example. We have our teeth, our tongue, our esophagus, our stomach, our liver, our colon, and all of these things work in conjunction with each other, kind of symbiotically. And if they were to lose any one of these things, they would problems would occur. There would be a mess up. And I would really I see it as more of a problematic thing if things are evolving for very slowly in this trajectory towards microbes and evolving and getting stronger and bigger and better and going through all the morphology required. I don't really see how digestion, for example, could be formed without all of it all at the same time. So that might be another area that we.
I mean, you've seen ocean sponges, right? Like, that's one of the earliest forms of like metabolism that's available to organisms, like sea sponges, for instance. Their first form of metabolism is to operate based upon ion gradients and to produce metabolism in that kind of way. Like, that's oceanic life. That's one of the first forms of somewhat of a metabolic. Can't speak today, but that's something of a metabolic process that's first known. But it's relatively easy to see how from there you can get a little bit more complex. The addition of fibrils, the addition of segregation of dermal layers, things like that. I'm not sure it's really hard when you begin examining it from especially a phylogenetic level.
May I add something standing for truth?
Sure.
Sorry. Yeah, sorry, I had it on mute there. Yeah, if that's okay with Ron, Matt, if you wanted to add, is it the phylogenetic systematics that Immutable's talking about?
No.
Yeah, go ahead, brother.
It's the irreducible complexity thing. I just want to add something from one of the leading evolutionists in the world, Dr. Francis Collins. In his book, which I read a couple of times back in a long time ago, he said, irreducible complexity is hard to overcome from an evolutionary perspective. He's a Christian evolutionist, and I respect Christian evolutionists. He said irreducible complexity is so hard to overcome. But later on, okay, he did suggest that if certain proteins come together and functions do change over time, it could happen. Okay, my question to him is, and I did ask him, but he didn't reply. He said, my question is, can you make testable predictions on that? I got no reply at all. And when I read evolutionary literature all these years, 15 years, even when I was still an evolutionist, I never saw any testable predictions on this. So you cannot just say this is the explanation and not make testable predictions or even retrodictions. Thank you.
Did you want to reply to that there, Immutable Destiny?
Yeah, you're looking in essence for a systematic kind of way we could determine, like in the case of metabolism, a step-by-step process for its evolution. One of those ways is ATP synthase. ATP synthase, there's quite a lot of versions of it. It's been a while since I looked at the literature surrounding it, but like really, really far back, like in some ocean mammals and probably still some microbes that still exist, but there's a very loose structure to how it operates. It'll still produce ATP, but it's less sophisticated than the kind of clamp we have. And certain organisms, as you keep going and study their proteins and how it's changed, you can see not step by step necessarily, but you can see the structural changes that were added and how it became essentially, a lot of people like to call it a turbine, but molecularly it functions more like a clamp.
Do you know what? Are you done?
Yeah.
Do you know what you just said cannot be accepted in court?
No, it can be. If you're asking for a systematic,
that is only less than 1% of the evidence. That is only less than 1% of the evidence. What you just said. That is just, you are inferring based on your evolutionary assumptions that it will go all the way, correct? Are you inferring that or not? That this looks like it's going all the way. Correct? Is that what you are implying?
I'm not saying it looks like it's going that way.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm saying that due to like genome sequencing and being able to actually express these proteins and to assign like physical mapping and genetic dates to these organisms, you can actually see the progression.
So you are linking this to genetic markers? You are appealing to common ancestry genetic markers?
Not genetic markers necessarily. In this case, it's a gene.
Okay.
But like genetic markers are their whole own issue.
Yeah, but you did infer parts of it, the synteny of it, correct? The relationship to it.
Sure. I mean, you always have the case that a gene will produce a protein. At least
It's nested hierarchies. Nested hierarchies, correct?
Twin nested hierarchy, but yeah.
So how do you do it? How do you construct your nested hierarchy? I know the answer. I just want to hear it from you. There are 4 categories. What are they?
I'm not a cladistic person.
This is your most powerful evidence. This is evolution's most powerful evidence. You should have studied it.
Yeah,
and I did study it.
My field is biochem.
So, sorry for my volume because I have to speak loud here because there's some kind of a problem with my volume. So please.
That's okay, Jeremy. Your volume's okay. Do you want to explain to Immutable how
can I ask
he builds the phylogenetic trees, or maybe Sam? Do you know how the nested hierarchies are built and developed and inferred?
I would like to. Well,
I can't hear.
I
can't hear.
Okay,
please speak louder. No, it's your problem.
Yeah, Sam, you're gonna have to increase your volume, or maybe get Crispr.
It's already maximum. My volume is already
maximum. I'm having a problem hearing you.
My volume is already at maximum.
Yeah,
Can I speak now? Because like I don't.
I cannot hear you.
I can hear you fine.
Christ. Okay.
Okay, now I can hear. Okay, you know what?
I already said on the record before the live debate, I cannot hear you. I only hear the word fuck.
Okay, let's keep the swearing down.
But like, I don't know why it has to be. I don't know what this man has against me, but I'll rejoin on my computer.
Okay,
like, I don't know why he's so angry at everyone.
Okay, can you hear?
Speculate.
Okay, let's have a calm back and forth here. Can you, Chris? Who here can explain out of the evolutionist side?
Give me the 4 categories of how you create your common ancestry trees in DNA. 4 categories.
Crispr, are
Anyone?
you? So obviously, Immutable Destiny is appealing to phylogenetic systematics as, you know, the number one way.
I noticed immediately he linked it to phylogenetics. That is why I'm asking him. Does he know phylogenetics? It seems like he doesn't know. Well, what are the categories evolutionists use to infer their common ancestry in DNA?
This is between me and Ra. Me and you can have our own discussion if you'd like, but as of now,
I think I'm familiar with you.
I think this is more of a discussion between you and Crispr.
Oh, I don't care. I can discuss with any of you.
Yes,
why is he yelling?
That's not our conversation currently.
Okay, you know what?
I'm not yelling. I need to speak louder.
Okay, Jeremy.
There's something wrong with my computer too.
Okay, just 1 second.
I spoke to my sister loud yesterday too when I was speaking to her.
Okay, well, everybody is telling you you don't need to be so loud. That means you don't need to be so loud.
Quiet down. I'm talking to Sam.
Okay, Sam's back in. Did you want to answer Jeremy's question? Then, Jeremy, I'm just going to ask you if.
I
understand. Don't give him time to Google it. Tell him to answer now.
No,
I literally just switched from my phone to my computer. I don't know how you would have thought I would have Googled it. Is he just going to be this hostile? Because I don't feel any need to talk to someone who's going to behave this way.
I'll speak slowly. Like I said, I need to speak louder.
The issue is not the speed of your talking, sir. It's the fact that you're being extremely rude and hostile.
Seriously? Are you not rude and hostile in your videos?
I'm sorry, I did not understand what you said.
Oh, that's. Don't take advantage of my weak English. Just speak.
I'm not. I'm trying to understand you.
To create genetic markers. Four
Or he's yelling.
categories.
Okay, I'm just gonna stop. I'm gonna stop it here. Okay, so I'm just gonna moderate here a little. Okay, so Jeremy, you ask your question in a respectful, polite way.
They are delaying. They are delaying. Maybe
know,
I'm
Google
not
it.
delaying. I genuinely don't understand what he
What are
is
the four
saying because of the
categories?
yelling.
What are
Like, I
the
think it's the
fucking four
standing. To
categories?
be honest,
How you
it's
determine your
the
genetic
sound
markers?
quality and the yelling combined
Okay,
with his
so-
accent.
Okay,
I don't like I'm not raising my voice. I'm not acting evasively. I literally just switched from my phone to my computer, like I said, and then this guy alleges that I'm trying to Google stuff. So I mean, I don't know what's wrong with him. I don't know who pissed in his cornflakes, but like, I think he's seriously got to make some adjustments in his attitude.
Okay, so here I'm just gonna step in real quick. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna start over. Sam,
Let them answer the question.
yes,
Let
just
them
one
answer
second.
the question.
I think Sam's a little bit more trained on this than Immutable in regards to phylogenetic systematics, nested hierarchies, how they're built. So what we're going to do is we're going to allow Sam to elaborate on that, and then Jeremy, you're going to respond. But I understand you got to speak a little bit louder, but just try and do it in more of a respectful form of dialogue. And if anyone else gets out of control, whether it's Sam, whether it's whoever it is, will be just as unbiased with everybody. Okay, go ahead, Sam. If you understand his question and what he said to Immutable.
I don't know what he was asking.
Okay, if
Really?
you want to repeat yourself, Jeremy.
Can I
I'll let
I'll
the
just do it.
answer if he knows.
He's asking how they make the nested hierarchies of phylogenetic trees.
Using
Broadly
DNA.
or specifically?
Using DNA.
Using
Give me the four
DNA?
categories. I can't
Using
hear you.
DNA, but broadly, the way that you make a tree is you need several elements. One is a model of DNA evolution.
Wait.
Which
May I say
is-
something? May I say something? A model of DNA evolution. I know exactly what you're talking about. You assume evolution first before you make your tree.
That's not what I'm
No,
saying at
Yes,
all.
it is. Yes, it is.
Can I
know
complete
how
my
you do it.
thought,
I know
or is this
If you're
guy
asking-
going to spastically interrupt me every single time I speak?
You even use the
If you are
hotback,
asking
correct?
for an answer, let him respond.
Okay, so
All right, respond.
so no name calling. Okay, Jeremy,
Respond.
just 1 second. We're gonna
Just said
allow
DNA
Sam to
evolution.
finish
I
his
know what
thought,
that means.
and then
I
if
have
you
read
believe-
many evolutionary books,
No, I understand,
more
Jeremy.
than
What I'm-
creationist books.
Okay, but what I'm saying is if Sam, after he's done his thought and his sentence, if you feel that what he said is based on an assumption, then we'll allow you to finish your thought and your sentence. We just don't want anybody talking over themselves. So we're just going to start with Sam, and then we'll go into your response, if that's okay. Go ahead, Sam.
He's not answering my question. I asked him to give me the four categories how evolutionists create their trees. It's in Richard Dawkins' books. It's in Dr. Francis Collins' book. It's also in Dr. Dennis Venema's book. All three of them, three of the top 20 evolutionists in the world. What are those four?
Can I point out something real quick, please?
Wait.
I like how the question's been addressed to me, but
discussion-
yet I don't get to actually.
Excuse me. This
finish my
discussion
thought.
really, right now, should be between
Stanley, I'm going to leave if you can't get a control of your room.
this discussion right now should be primarily between Raw and Immutable, and after a time, the room would be opened according to what Standing has expressed for
The deal I
a
had with
general
Standing was not
discussion.
that.
So what we need to do is, it would be to respect that, and for everybody to be quiet and allow Raw and Immutable to have their discussion. And after a time, then I believe Standing has said that he would open it up for everyone as a general discussion.
I just muted Jeremy, and I messaged him privately. He's just we'll allow Raw, Matt, and Immutable Destiny to continue here.
I want to apologize to everybody. So, Sam, give me the four categories, please. Forgive me.
I'm not going to answer your question because you're just going to interrupt me in the middle of the explanation.
Not anymore.
Look,
Okay.
for now, let's ignore that.
Because you don't know how to answer. Because you don't know how to answer.
Sake.
Dude,
What
what
are
is
the
your
four
problem?
categories?
Maybe you need some sleep, but you need to chill out.
Hey, it's lunchtime in my country here, so I don't need any fucking sleep.
Okay, Jeremy, if anybody who swears one more
I
time,
apologize. Let
whether
me
it's
answer. Standing for
creationist-
truth. This was not our deal.
standing.
Yeah, but the thing is, Jeremy, you're not letting him finish his sentence. So
I will right now. I will calm down right now. So let him
if
speak.
you interrupt one more time, Jeremy, I'm going to eject you. It doesn't matter if you're a creationist or not, because you're not making the chat fun for everybody else. People are listening. It's recorded. It's going to go on for everyone to see. So
You
allow
started
either
this standing for truth. This is your fault.
allow
So Sam,
Sam to respond, and then hopefully you can have a good back and forth dialogue there. Go ahead, Sam.
What was the original question? Was how they generate phylogenetic trees, if I recall. So I'll go back to answering that.
No.
So in general, what they
give me the
do
4
is,
categories.
in general, what they do when they're generating phylogenetic trees is you need several components. So one of them is you need a model of DNA evolution. So this is just simply a model of how nucleotide substitution works in given sequences, right? So there's different rates of changes, let's say, for an A to a T than a G to a T, right? So you can model that. The other thing that you need is a set of sequences, including an outgroup. So for example, if you were going to do primates, you would then, pick some reasonable outgroup, maybe mouse, maybe, guinea pig, something like that. And then what you need then is a heuristic for how you're going to make lineage assignments. And so this can be based upon the likelihood of changes that happen along a given lineage. So this is something that would be like an ML, or a maximum likelihood approach. Or you could have an approach where the simplest number of changes, the fewest number of changes, which would be a maximum parsimony approach. And this is usually like the first go around that people do. Or you can do something that's becoming increasingly more popular with more inference power and more computing power, which is like what's called a Bayesian approach, which means that you have priors based upon known cases of how lineages will diverge, and just statistical estimations, and you can estimate those parameters and then assign a tree from that. Those are sort of the basic broad outlines of how you would assign a lineage tree between species. However, that can get more and less specific.
Okay, thanks for your response, Sam. Jeremy, we'll give you as much time as you need to flesh that out and tell everybody what you feel is either correct about that or wrong about that. Go ahead, Jeremy.
He did give me the direct answer I was asking for, but I get what he's talking about. The final part, he was talking about synteny arrangements. It is kind of like using the coalescence method too. Correct, Sam?
No, that would be incorrect. So syntenic arrangements refer to regions of chromosomes that are co-inherited in their spatial recognition. So what I'm talking about would be based off of pure sequence. You also would not apply a coalescence method to different species. And the reason is just because you can't make the scaled population estimates that are necessary. You would only apply coalescence estimates to within a population of a current extant species, going back however far you can actually scale that. So something like human populations, you would use that for.
But to create your synteny arrangement, you need coalescence too.
You don't need a no. So you've mixed up two things here. So you don't need a syntenic arrangement.
No, sorry, the word is not synteny. It's a different word. I made a mistake. Not synteny. For example,
I'm using the adjective form. You don't use synteny for what I just talked about. You don't need that, right?
You were talking about the, for example, 369 pattern, mutational pattern from generation to generation, correct?
No.
No, that's it.
No, that's not what I was talking about.
Would you please?
What I'm talking about is when you construct a phylogenetic tree. Let's say that we have gene A, and it's orthologous. Gene A in species 1, and then we have 5 species. Species 5 is the outgroup, and we have the ortholog to gene A across all those species. And then you would base it, and you said DNA, so you would use the nucleotide sequence. You wouldn't use a syntenic block. And in general, you don't tend to use syntenic blocks when constructing phylogenetic trees, just simply because rearrangements happen less predictably and just more commonly along, or I should say, less predictably and are less conserved. So you would use something like nucleotide sequence because we can model that. We don't really model rearrangements all that well, even in the case of somatic events like cancer. So you wouldn't use synteny, no. And you wouldn't use a coalescence either.
Thank you for clarifying. So what is your best evidence of genetic markers in DNA? What best
I
evidence
don't
can you
know
give?
what that question means. What do you mean by what's my best evidence for genetic markers in DNA?
What is your best evidence of, for example, this is a human, this is gorilla, this is a human, and there's which was on top again. This is the gorilla, right? Then correct me if I'm wrong. This is gorilla, then chimp, and human, right here, correct?
Well, it's
That's
arbitrary to the rooting of the phylogeny, so I don't think that
yeah.
I think you should already ask the actual question.
Okay, so what we're going to do here real quick, because this could
Sandy?
go on forever by Jeremy asking questions and back and forth and corrections here. Jeremy, why don't you make your point about, why you believe phylogenetic systematics, nested hierarchies, why you believe that's incorrect. And then
I have to
Sam
explain.
respond, and then we'll go back to raw mat and immutable for a while, because the way this is going at this point, it could probably go on forever.
I'm sorry, I'm not very good in English, so I need to explain to him what I'm trying to explain a while ago. This is a gorilla, then chimp and human, right here and right here. Okay, so there should be shared pseudogenes among them, which creates a, I think this is now the correct one, the synteny arrangement I was referring to. Okay, so what is your best example of that?
The existence of shared, is he asking for the best example of shared syntenic blocks or shared?
Let me
like I don't under like I
Okay,
don't
I'm gonna nip
trying
this
to
in the butt.
say here.
I'm gonna give this
be
one
clear.
more
Okay,
chance.
I'll explain clearly.
Yes,
All
explain
in one.
clearly, and then go from here, because it needs to be a free-flowing conversation. We can't spend too much time on this one simple point. Go ahead.
Genetic markers or SNPs that just in one sequence, one particular sequence in DNA, which includes homology, synteny, pseudogenes, and redundancy. Sometimes there is redundancy, sometimes there are none. So give me at least three, one example of one genetic marker example, which includes homology, synteny, pseudogenes, or sometimes there's no redundancy. But the three that I just mentioned, homology, synteny, and pseudogenes, those are more or less included. So give me at least one example.
I don't. I mean, he's asking me for an example of a pseudogene.
Did you? Not
I mean,
exactly.
I can name one, but I don't really know what the point would be. I don't really know too much about what a shared pseudogene. Like I don't
example,
off the top of my head know what pseudogenes are shared between.
Did you watch the
It's not something I look into, but I'm sure I could look into it. But I don't really see the point of this question.
I'm really surprised you don't know your own best evidence. Did you watch the Jackson Wheat and Standing for Truth debate?
No, I have things to do.
The way I see it,
I'm just
Mr.
kidding, by the way,
Jackson Wheat.
standing. You know, I'm being tongue in cheek.
As far as I
Jackson
know,
Wheat
the question that was supposed to be answered hasn't been answered yet. So let's put this back on
Yeah,
topic.
I mean, I don't really know because you're giving me a really vague and malformed question. I don't know.
I think what Jeremy's trying to get at
if
is
it's a language barrier, which if it is, I apologize, but I don't know what he's trying to get at.
Well, it's because in Jackson Wheat's presentation, as well as Dr. Herman May's presentation and Dr. Vanima, which Jeremy's quite familiar with, they use a lot of these genetic markers, these pseudogenes, and Jackson Wheat had a presentation where very specific genetic markers were used to construct these phylogenetic charts that were connecting the different relationships. So I know a couple specific ones he used was a gulo pseudogene, I think a beta globin pseudogene, and insulin peptide pseudogene. Am I on the right track here, Jeremy?
Well, I don't think that
It's-
insulin, peptide, or beta globin would be pseudogenes, but because that wouldn't make sense. Like obviously, insulin is functional, but I mean, if he's just saying, "Oh, what a whole panacea of genes that have been used to construct phylogenies," I mean, there are plenty of genes that have. I couldn't name all of them. So I think that that's just. I think that this is just a weird trivia question that really is of no consequence. So I
by
think
the
we
way,
should just let Raw, Matt, and
the,
Immutable have their
the
conversation if
please
that's okay.
answer my question. By the way, I would like to address his insulin peptide gene. Actually, the insulin peptide gene. This is related to the codon, and each codon, as we know, has 3 different DNA letters. It only uses GT and C, which creates an amino acids. Correct. There is a redundancy. Yeah, correct. That's the correct word. That's a redundancy in these peptide genes, and it is shared across animals and shows a nested hierarchy. Let me teach you about your own best evidence, which I am surprised you do not know even about. For example, the chimpanzee sequence differs by only 6 nucleotides from the gorilla.
Yes, I know that insulin is very well conserved among mammals. Is that the point you're making?
But how did you not know it doesn't create a nested hierarchy? Why did you say this is not an evidence of a genetic marker a while ago?
I didn't say it didn't make a nested hierarchy. You're just not phrasing questions very well, to be honest.
Can you rewind this video, Standing for Truth? Because I heard him say it.
No, I think if the audience wants to go back at some point, they can do that. Jeremy, what we're going to do here, and Sam, we're going to get it back to Raw, Matt, and Immutable. I want...
Can you let us finish Standing for Truth?
I really would like it if they got back to it, because I'm not enjoying this conversation with him.
So at the end of the day, obviously, it sounds like Jeremy has a problem with the construction of the phylogenetic charts based on some of the genetic markers. It looks like he was asking you what some of the specific genetic markers are. You know what, Jeremy, if this makes you happy,
I can quash this. I don't know, like in terms of the exact all markers that have ever been used for phylogenetic trees. Of course, I don't have them all memorized. I can look them up. I can look through. I can look through the literature. I can find a few examples for you. But like off the top of my head, they've used many genes to construct many phylogenies. So it's a bit of a ridiculous expectation that I would know every single one.
I need you to.
If that's what the allegation is being made here. But I think, Standing, we can set a hard time limit on this, maybe by 3 minutes.
Standing for Truth, don't let him loose on this. I need to finish this up.
What we're gonna do? Okay, so what we're gonna do here? Sam just said his piece.
Just give me one more, just one, sir, Mr. Sam. Give me just one.
Okay, Jeremy, just okay. So Sam said he gave his piece there. Jeremy, take literally 30 seconds to sum up everything you were trying to get out of him in regards to the genetic markers, the phylogenetic trees. Sum it up. The audience can make their own conclusion as to who, was whatever it is. Just sum up your points there, and then we'll get back to Raw, Matt, and Immutable Destiny. Go ahead.
How can I sum it up if he doesn't even know at least one genetic marker? Because I have questions for each genetic marker.
What I mean by sum it up is,
I mean, you can also use OXA. Like you can use lots of genes for these things.
Oh, insulin peptide gene. You just opened it up. So please enlighten us.
About what?
Do you know there is a redundancy in the insulin peptide gene? Do you know there is a redundancy?
I don't know why this is relevant. Can we just move on?
Okay, this is what we're going to do.
I need to ask you some questions.
No. Hey, this is what we're going to do. This is what we're going to do. No more questions. Sam ended it there. He just said he doesn't know why this is relevant. Jeremy, if you feel like it's relevant,
this is your most standing. Let me speak. This is your most powerful evidence.
If you feel like it's relevant, Jeremy, take 30 seconds, sum it up, tell the audience, tell everybody why it's relevant, and then we're going to switch topics.
He tried to change the topic.
He's repeating himself. Why are you indulging this thing? Honestly, this is pathetic on your part. Can we move on?
I'm trying to change the topic here so we can move on. Jeremy, take 30 seconds, 20 seconds, whatever it is, sum it up, tell everybody why you believe it is relevant, and then we're going to switch topics, if that's okay with Sam. I don't want to cut Sam off. Okay, go ahead.
You are remarkably dumb too, by the way. I'm talking about Sam. He just wrote, "This is remarkably dumb." Fuck. So anyway, here, for example, the whale. We just go to the Jackson Wheat and Standing for Truth debate. They talk about the whale. It was a big deal. Okay, so let's talk about it. I want to ask evolutionists, how many
Okay.
nucleotides?
Okay, I'm okay.
Wait,
I'm
wait, let me finish.
I'm going to step in here, and I'm not going to let you finish.
How many nucleotides or bases are involved
Andy,
in the whale
Andy.
smelling gene?
Moderation.
Okay. So Jeremy, I gave you the chance to sum it up. You went into another question, so we're gonna go back to Raw, Matt, and Immutable. Immutable, I want to. What's your number one or two? What's the number one or two things that you feel are, the best evidence for yourself to accept universal common ancestry? And then we're going to switch to Raw, Matt, who can maybe go back and forth as to why he believes that isn't exactly the best evidence for universal common descent. Go ahead, Immutable.
Boy, that's a bitch of a question, actually. Probably with the exception of viruses, the universality of the genetic code, and also just kind of the common set of enzymes you see present within organisms that are universally used. I mean, I guess that and phylogenetics, but I'm not really too strong on that topic, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again.
Okay, well, because earlier you said that you're, which is fine. I mean, you're not totally. I guess your specialty isn't phylogenetic systematic. So for you, what is? Do you believe? Because obviously you believe in universal common ancestry. What would you point to? Just something specifically off the top of your head. If you can't think of anything right now, that's fine. Raw, Matt, what do you feel is the fatal blow to universal common descent? What do you look to that makes you think? Is it the entropic degeneration of our genome? Is it limits in the changes we see? Go ahead.
No, we can look at a lot of different things, but regarding what he was saying, if his strong points, what he was looking at were the universal genetic code being seen and living species, but we're looking at amino acids from this standpoint. So when we're looking at only about 20 to a small amount of amino acids, we can't expect to see so much difference of these amino acid chains anyway. I wouldn't expect, especially since there's only a finite amount of there's millions of species, but there's only a finite amount of proteins or amino acids that there are anyway. So we shouldn't expect to not see these amino acids in all life. So I guess for people to say, look, we can see amino acids in that species and we can see them in this species, we can tie it together. Sorry, I'm trying to read at the same time your comments up here, but I should be just not looking at that at all. Genetic entropy can be debated because they see a fast mtDNA clocks when they test, and they see also slow ones when they test in a different way. So we want to look at different types of evidence in many different regards. To falsify our system, it would be easy, because we go by the Bible and to what it describes. So if they want to falsify creationism, it's actually quite easy because we don't even have to have a real predictions to falsify ours. They can just prove abiogenesis. They can prove it if there were aliens. They could prove it if language could arise on its own. They can disprove us if they could prove species morph into new species in these things. But until I guess we see that, then I guess sorry.
I'm not sure if you could have said a more odd statement regarding proteins and how amino acids can combine. It could be you just haven't taken biochemistry in a while, but there's an abundance even within different protein structures that form. You have barreling helixes, you have alpha beta helixes, alpha beta helixes, gamma beta helixes. You have almost an endless structure to the amounts of proteins that form. That's not even considering post-translational modifications, which primarily is present in eukaryotes, but sometimes you find it in prokaryotes too. But I mean, as far as amino acids go, like you should expect a fairly relative amount of diversity within like prokaryotes and eukaryotes, and especially like with archaeans.
Oh no, I understand that. I just meant like so for example, we have about 19,000 different genes. We have these, and we can see them. These genes, they do similar things throughout the different kingdoms. But when we see these genes in different life forms, if there's not that many total, but there's millions of species, then we should expect to see some commonality in these things, since there aren't that many.
Well, why would you expect that, right? I mean, part of what determines like part of what I would speculate, and I'm not sure, right? Like I'm not an evolutionary biologist. I would expect part of what guides an organism's body plans or future progeny is how a gene is expressed. Like if you're in a cold environment and you have genes that cause you to produce more heat to metabolize things quicker and more efficiently, chances are that gene's going to get expressed really often, as opposed to like if you're having like you see my point, don't you? That
yeah. I just thought I think we're on maybe a different page. Like I expect that the genes might, the HOX gene, for example, which makes body chemistry, and like if you were to cut off your finger, there's a doctor that's really good at using pig bladder cells to help them regrow, and they regrow the same as they were before because of this gene that's in our body that allows it to do that. But we also see that same gene in other animals, but it doesn't grow these features like us. It grows them in their own special way. But I'm just saying that these genes being across different things, you guys claim common ancestry, we just claim common design. So it's kind of a hard argument, really. It's just a perspective. So yeah, that's.
I'm not sure it's even a matter of perspective, really. Like the issue with common design, as I see it, right, is with common design, it seems almost too coincidental that, like with ERVs and like with certain pseudogenes that get passed on, like even like after hundreds of generations, like still hold on to it. Like the gulo gene is a great example of that. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
Which one?
Gulo, Gulo.
Oh yeah, yes.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, why is like I guess I would ask, like, why are certain genes that we know don't function like they used to, but they don't function? Like, why would that be passed on according to like intelligent design?
Because if it's degrading, it's just. I mean, it would be passed on, but we're degrading more. We see it as loss of information handed down. That's why we're seeing increases in disease exponentially, even with population rates being completely plateaued. And I shouldn't say population. I just meant age relation. We're kind of plateaued around 78, 79. It's gone down in the last couple of years, but we see disease increasing, and we know that. Cancer has gone up, and the Cancer Institute predicts 50% more cancers in the next decade. So we're seeing an exponential growth of disease, but it's going much, much higher. Why would we pass on such harmful things if beneficial mutations in these things can just weed them out? We should be weeding out these genetic problems easily, but diseases are flying.
I mean, also consider the right. Hold on, but like also consider, right, when you're dealing with some organisms like bacterium, like microbes, they can evolve relatively quickly because the time it takes for them to reproduce isn't really that long. Like human beings, roughly speaking, right? This change in diet we've had towards more like saturated fats and heavily like polysaccharide based and like sugar craving, it's relatively new for the body to try and deal with. So, I mean, in a way, it's one of those things where if you give the genetic clock a little bit more time, it probably could deal with it. But if you're essentially, it's kind of this issue that if the environment is changing too quickly, in this case, like if the chemistry our body is used to is changing too quickly for it, then it's going to cause damage. It's going to cause issues for the body to try and handle a situation it in the past never had an issue with.
Let me answer that. Can I answer that, gulo gene? If you don't mind standing for truth.
Okay, so if you want to answer the gulo gene, you have to answer it in a way where it's not question based. It's kind of like you summing up a point, and then that way Immutable can respond to that specific point. But we can't have this back and forth trivia, if that's okay with you.
You just don't understand what I'm talking about. That's why you said it's a trivia.
No,
Anyway,
I'm not saying it's a trivia, but in regards to gulo as being used as a broken pseudogene or a genetic marker, you know, if you want to sum up your points as why you believe that's incorrect, then we're fine. Then I'm fine with that.
I do not completely believe it's incorrect. I have seen the sequences myself. Dr. Dennis Venema in his book, which I read a couple of times, also showed it. Even Dr. Francis Collins' book also showed it. But I would like to ask a question to Immutable Destiny. Sorry, I have to ask a question. I need to know that he understands this before I try to refute it. Please understand, Standing. Let me.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, you know what? Immutable brought it up. So Jeremy, ask him the question, because I don't understand if he brings up phylogenetics or gulo pseudogene. I understand he should probably understand it a little bit. So ask him the question.
Those genetic. He already brought up those genetic markers twice. That is why I went in between raw math and.
I could tell. I know how passionate you are on genetic markers. You're very knowledgeable on it. You've read Dr. Venema's book. You understand Jackson Wheat's presentation as well as Dr. Mays. So you know what? Go ahead, ask Immutable the specific question related to gulo. Let him answer, and then you give your point or your response to that. Go ahead.
I forgot the question. All right. First question. How many nucleotides or bases are involved in the gulo gene?
I don't know. I don't have a genome map in front of me. I don't see why
So
that's
if you don't know, if you don't know, how do you know how to refute it?
Because
that's the most basic.
Because I'm not focused on how many it's constituted of. I'm focused on what the gene is supposed to do. The fact that it doesn't work.
So you heard what people say, then you say, okay, this is it, based on what you don't know. Okay, I get that. The second question: how many generations on the specific lineage of the gulo gene do we see those genetic markers? How many generations? Which lineage do we see it?
I don't know. I never brought up lineages of molecular genes that were passed on. I mentioned that it exists in other organisms, but I don't remember referring specifically to a timeline. So I see that as irrelevant.
So if you don't know, how can you refute it?
Because I'm focusing on what the gene is supposed to do.
So what does it do?
It's
so what does it do?
Fixate a specific isomer of ascorbic acid.
So you don't know there is a synteny arrangement in the gulo gene?
We're talking about the genetics. I'm not focused on it.
Yeah,
that is not
vitamin C. It is a vitamin C production gene, correct?
Vitamin D, but yeah, fairly sure.
Vitamin C.
Might be, yeah.
It's not D, vitamin C. And do you know where it's found?
Vitamin C?
Oh, no. Which lineage? I already asked this question. Please answer it again. Do you know where it's found? Oh my goodness.
I don't know, and I don't know.
How can you refute something you know nothing about?
Because I'm not talking about the phylogeny. I'm talking about something that does not work.
Did we not talk about the phylogeny? Everybody heard it.
Okay,
Everybody heard it.
I thought I thought this discussion.
Talk about the phylogeny, correct?
I thought this discussion was between Raw and Immutable for a time, and then opened for everybody. So, I mean, this is the title of this hangout. Why don't we stick to that? Because that's what it is, and that would be orderly. And then we could open it up, as Standing has said, for everyone to get in their 2 cents, and we can just go back and forth between everybody. But the title of this hangout is Raw and Jeremy. The title of this hangout is Raw versus Immutable. These two guys are supposed to be having it out about evolution right now, but we're not doing that. That's what it's supposed to be about. So
Okay,
why don't
so
let's return to that. And
okay,
then
so we're gonna.
after a
I
time,
agree. I agree. So we're gonna jump away from the pseudogene, or I mean, from the the gulo pseudogene, and jump back into raw, mat, and immutable just for a little bit more. And then at this point, it might be just best to open it up, make it a free for all for whoever wants to give their input, either immutable or raw, mat. Go ahead. Whoever
Yeah,
feels
say
compelled.
Immutable. I know you had to go quite a while ago, so if you wanted to actually say anything, man, you should go first. So
No, it's cool. I'm actually enjoying this, but like the interruptions are kind of getting old. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah, it's all right. That's why we got a lot of people in chat, so it's expected. It's hard.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not great at phylogenetics. There's there's sites you can look into that kind of give you kind of like a good description of like the transitional forms that we talk about and how the predictions and transitions are met. I'm not in a position to talk about that, but they exist. I can point you in the right direction if you need that.
He must have been muted.
Oh,
yeah,
great.
Jeremy was muted on that one. Yeah. Okay, so I guess it's just back to us again. But we didn't have really any direction to go, so it's kind of hard to like. I like that he asked us a question on that last one, so that was good.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
So I guess another question to direct. Were you, Matt? I know it was a few minutes ago, so I don't 100% remember. Were you looking to the degradation of our genome as the best evidence for creation and against evolution? Is that kind of where you guys were at?
I mean, it's a great one. Don't get me wrong. I think there's better. Quantum mechanics has falsified materialism. That's a pretty big blow.
Okay.
I mean, we found that language going back 250 years, they've been studying feral children and abused children and neglected children, and they've done the Eric Lindbergh using the age of acquisition has tried to figure out how in the world did language form? How can we teach these kids how to speak? And they've never found a natural path for human language to form after the age of 13. So if only kids are left to be able to form the first language, then we have a huge problem. There's no natural path. Every experiment that they've ever done over these 300 years, since like 1644, they've never been able to teach anybody over the age of 13 language. So that's fascinating. I don't think many people know that. Also,
it sounds really interesting. Honestly, I've never heard of it. It's something to look into. It could just be that some regions of the world take longer to get language to form than in others. There could be something in the genetics there. I'm not sure. It's
possibly they've been really trying to figure this out because it would be a huge thing to be able to get everybody to do it. But the problem with the evolutionary theory is that this had to evolve everywhere in the world. This had to evolve in every race of humans, but they can't get it to work at all in any people. It seems like the brain can never learn an abstract thought after the age of 13. Before that, if you learn sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of like that's an understood limitation of children, right? Like a child understands kind of sort of at age 8, like what space and time are, as they exist, but not as abstract concepts.
Correct, so, but that's only if they learn from their L1. They can learn nouns and basic concepts, and that allows them to learn language. But if they never acquire that in the first place, they can never grasp it to actually learn language. So that's. I mean,
I think probably in the very beginning, you would have organisms that arbitrarily select language.
Well, we have macaques, these primates that actually have the ability to speak. They put electrodes in their brain and they can actually sound words out. And so they know that it's not a physical impossibility, but they have no ability to ever learn language. They never do it on their own. And obviously, our brains are much superior to that. So they're trying to figure out what in the world are wrong with these kids if they're not having brain problems? Why can't they learn language? But that's just another thing. So I really find that subject fascinating, and I like to go there.
It's a really good question. I mean, it's one of those things like where in Africa, like certain tribes, they still use a very they don't. I'm not sure if it's words necessarily, but like they use a like various like grunts to communicate.
Wow.
Yeah,
Still.
it's like it's one of those things. I mean, I don't even know necessarily if like speaking as we're speaking now would be like entirely necessary. You could have a system based upon how many rocks are in a circle, or like using something like sign language, learning from other organisms.
Right.
I mean, and it could just be that for some reason, and I don't know why necessarily, but like if these children were isolated in this kind of environment where they never necessarily had the need to use words, that it could be that as evolution progresses, that there's just that developmental pathway narrows.
Yeah, they think that that's exactly what they found. They found that by the time they hit puberty, it's shut off. Their ability to learn anything past that time is already shut off, which is why they find it so hard for language to ever form in the first place, because it would take somebody to teach somebody human language. So if it just has to arise on its own, and you're just left with kids being able to speak to each other before puberty to actually learn language, there's no natural path to language. So that's one of the evidences that I like to use, because Darwin himself said that speech is 95% plus what puts us above animals. So everyone knows that you can use this evolution. So,
I'm not even sure like that's not really a great argument though. Like, I think part of what's also really like really good about this is you could consider like ancient humans behaving in a way that language is communicated by a form of ethics, right? Like the act of respecting, not to go into your neighbor's, barn and steal their cow, for instance, could be a form of respect, and it could be that these kinds of mannerisms that are understood get reciprocated by some kind of grunt, ooh, or that kind of thing. There's a million and one ways it could develop, but I mean, I think part of it also be like the means of language to survive is probably a secondary tool. Like the important thing for humans is that we get food, we get it inside of ourselves and can reproduce. The language thing kind of seems like something that would take a little bit more sophistication to work out. You need a village before you can develop a language.
Right. I saw a comment pop up that says we should be wrapping it up. So we have a lot of people here, so I guess that's good. We should just unmute the mics and have them go.
Well, Matt,
Yeah,
I was wondering if I could jump in for a second, because it's funny that you mentioned this, because my best friend, he actually does linguistics and childhood language acquisition research for a living. He's a PhD student in, I think, psycholinguistics. I'd have to ask him. It's either psychology or linguistics. And basically, when kids are left to their own devices, they form their own pidgin languages on their own. And so it seems to be there seems to be some communication module in the brain. And so at some point, that became formalized into the, via writing and grammar and all that stuff, which was obviously, thousands of years down the road. But originally, like, it does seem to be the empirical case that children will develop their own languages just sort of naturally. It seems to be a neurobiological function of humans, which I find fascinating, because I can't, like you, I can't conceptualize at all how that makes sense, but it is the observation.
Yeah, and there's another really interesting thing too. Matt, have you ever heard of what are called mirror neurons? And I promise this will make sense.
Mirror neurons. Are they like the rosehip neuron?
Not quite. I'm not familiar with that one, but a mirror neuron, essentially what it does is what it will do is, like, when I'm talking, let's say I'm walking down a road and I see two people talking, the region of my brain, like, that's responsible for speech will actually begin to be excited by these mirror neurons simply by observing that kind of behavior. So one potential idea, and this is still kind of bullshitting it, but one potential idea is, like, with mirror neurons, it's understood at least that, like, with a dog barking, or like when you see animals that are kind of similar to you doing a gesture, that can activate those neurons. And it could be that, as time goes on, children are hearing these sounds, they're playing around, they're imitating it, but they adapt these noises, they adapt these very tribalistic sounds to their own purposes. And as time goes on, you refine it to mean certain things, like, okay, time to go hunting, or what have you, whatnot.
Yeah, but the fascinating thing is, if we look back at the ancient Paleo languages, we find that, like, this Paleo-Semitic Hebrew is like one of the most advanced languages of all. Kind of ironic that they came out with like a numerical, linguistic, phonetic sounding, highly advanced language for the first languages to form. Just, it's kind of strange that we would our languages today aren't even as superior as they were when we go back.
I think, like, are you considering, like, Homo habilis and things like that humans, or are you considering them kind of like pre-human?
No, just really anything that could have the ability to form language. So far, no one would consider, like, a fish or a dolphin or a dog a language. They have the ability to communicate, but with basic nouns or sounds, like a rattlesnake spinning its tail. These are just sounds or warning. They're simplistic things, but none of them would be considered by a linguist to be language. So we're just got to be talking about language, because communication can mean anything, but language itself is very specific to human beings. So
I'm not sure necessarily I would agree with that. I would say that language itself, there's it's a means, like, of sophistication, like, within communication. Like, there are certain, like, plants, for instance, there's certain pheromones they can release, and there are certain processes they undergo in order to alert the presence of certain predators or to attract certain prey to themselves. Now, granted, like, you can call that instinct, but I would say that's kind of bordering on a relatively advanced kind of communication system, given that, like, these kinds of systems don't even have neural networks, like neurons that can convey something to a brain, especially in the case of a plant.
yeah, the neurons are amazing. They've actually found 63 neurons at heart. That's why when people get a heart transplant and they take that new person's heart, they seem to enjoy, like, the same sports or things that they've never liked before. Pretty crazy.
Yeah, there's other ideas about behavior and how it's linked with neurons, and part of the idea is that, in your average human, like, there's a certain collection of microbiome that are more or less present. But it's noticed that in autistic children, there's a significantly different microbiome, like, radically different. And they think that there may be some interplay between, like, the way that that the microbiome interacts with the brain, like, via
There's a good books on that with called wheat belly, or wheat brain, and it talks about the gluten having inflammation of the mucous membrane and passing the blood-brain barrier, causing swelling and problems with the microbiome that causes the brain to be all disrupted.
Yeah, but I'm referring actually more to so on a molecular level, cells will release certain neurochemicals to kind of influence the activity of, like, certain processes. And what sometimes, like, they're speculating that the interactions between, like, some of these neurochemicals in the brain are different based upon, like, the bacteria that use them, which is kind of interesting.
Nice.
Yeah.
I said we have other people in the room right now. They can chime in as well. I think we're done between you and me, right? So we should let other people as well join, hop on in if they want.
Well, I'll jump in. The chimpanzee voice box is not capable of human speech. Scientists who've studied human speech and chimpanzees have stated the voice box of a chimpanzee is absolutely incapable of human speech. And yet, birds, a number of species, are able to speak just like a human being. They sound extreme, except for the tenor of their voice, of course. They sound very human. This completely contradicts the evolution theory that a bird, which supposedly evolved millions of years before a chimpanzee, tens of millions of years, in fact, before a chimpanzee, is capable of speaking with very well elucidated and enunciated human language. Everybody has known that a parrot or a raven can speak just like a human being, and they sound remarkably like one. There is a bird that lives in South America, I forgot the name of the species, that can emulate the sounds of a chainsaw, of a human being speaking, of a saw, of a drill. That these creatures, when they hear it, they can reproduce it because their voice box is absolutely amazing. And so they can reproduce almost any sound that they hear. But a chimpanzee has a really constricted, super simple voice box, and their voice box is nowhere capable of speaking like a human being. They can utter grunts and sounds and noises of a little bit different in octave, but they cannot speak like a human being. It is impossible to make a chimpanzee speak like a human being. Their voice box will not allow for it. This greatly contradicts the evolution theory.
Hey, Neff,
it doesn't make sense.
Neff, you've kind of repeated yourself several times.
It doesn't make sense that a bird that evolved millions of years before a chimp can speak human language, but a chimpanzee can't.
Okay, go ahead, Sam.
Well, I mean, I think firstly, Neff, can you try to make an effort to not be as repetitious as you?
Well, you could be a little more patient.
Fair enough, but I also don't. Come on, the other people in the conversation. I'm just asking you to.
Well, gosh, I get
politeness.
Just tell me how many seconds I get, and we'll be good with that.
All right, keep it to 30, and I'll keep it to 30 or a minute. Who cares? I don't think it's that hard to keep in track of your head if you make the same point. But
well,
I think that the critical error that Neff is making here is that he's assuming that the exact way that we speak is the same as birds. And the fact is no, they're completely independent structures and pathways that generate these things. The reason why a chimpanzee can't speak like a human can is because of the lack of a presence of a hyoid bone. The way that humans create speech is completely different, and we can trace the rise or when the hyoid bone arose in human lineages. And so I don't see any problem there. I mean, it's just two independent observations.
Well, so what I hear is always an evolution of something that we can trace based on assumption. Those things always fall. So that just doesn't answer for anything. The simple clarity of it is that a chimpanzee came far later and supposedly vastly more closely related to a human being, and yet they're absolutely incapable of human speech. And a bird, which evolved 45 million years before a chimpanzee, is capable of saying everything that a human being can say, and you can understand every single word they say. That does not fit the narrative of evolution. I mean, it's just that clear.
So here's the thing, though. The physical structures of a chimpanzee are actually capable of mimicking human speech. The brain
they are
is
not. No, they're not.
I'm sorry, you're simply mistaken.
No, they're not.
You're about 20 years behind the time.
No, sir, that's a lie. That's
I'm
false
sorry,
science.
You've seen
You just lied in the name of evolution
modern
theory.
Physiological studies of this.
Show me an evolution, a science. Show me an example of a chimpanzee that's been taught to speak human language, because
I'm sorry, were you not listening to what I just said?
Scientists have been
hold on. Were you not listening to what I just said? Were you not listening?
Is it not true that scientists have been trying get
or are you not
chimpanzees
listening?
to speak
What I
human
said
language for 50
What I
years,
said was,
and they've
what
all
I-
failed.
Okay,
What
this is what we're gonna do. Okay, this
what
is what we're
I
gonna
said
do. Crispr said that he thinks you misunderstood what he said. So Crispr, rephrase your point and then carry on.
Thank you. What I said was the physiological studies of the actual mechanics of a chimpanzee's vocal cords are such that they know that they could make the sounds that humans make. The brain is not able to do it. It is not. So obviously, you could not teach a chimpanzee to mimic human speech, even if it's capable of making the sounds on a physical basis. These are two separate questions.
Okay, go ahead, Neff. Oh, is Neff muted?
Yeah.
Neff, I think you're muted, brother.
Okay, so I just provided in text something that trumps your, I don't know where you get these crazy assumptions. This scientific paper published 1996 says, language is perhaps the most important single characteristic of this that distinguishes human beings from other animal species. Because the different structure of the vocal apparatus in humans and chimpanzees, it is not possible for a chimpanzee to imitate the sounds of human language.
Yeah,
So
like
they
I
have
said,
been
you're
taught.
20 years
Okay,
behind the
so
times.
wait a minute. Okay, so if you want to say that in the listen, I hear this all the time. When I provide a fossil quote that was published in 1989, an evolutionist says that's ancient science. When I provide a science paper that was published in 1997, an evolutionist says that's ancient science. When I provide a published paper from 2005 about genetics, an evolutionist says that's antiquated science. When I provide a quotation from a science paper published in 2011, an evolutionist says that's antiquated science. I'm calling BS, okay? This is not antiquated science. It's current. It's only 1997. It's only 20 years old. Now, if you're going to say that this has been trunced and somebody has taught a chimpanzee or shown that a chimpanzee is capable of human language, you need to provide the science, because I just did.
Already dead in the side.
Get me the statement that shows the anatomical structure of the chimpanzee vocal box is capable of human language. Where's it at?
It's already in the side.
In the side.
I did it while you were
He
still
already
talking.
he already provided it.
Okay, so we'll take a look at that, and I'm gonna. If I have the time to examine this, you know what we'll find? We'll find that there are assumptions, laced upon assumptions, upon hierarchies of assumptions, which don't discuss the actual anatomical features of the vocal box of the chimpanzee that show it's capable of human speech. That's what we'll find.
Well,
I'm looking at the publication right now, and Figure 1 has actual X-ray videos and still images, in the thing here, it has still images of X-rays of the vocal tract configuration. So the idea that this doesn't address anatomy, just out of the fact that you.
So human beings
is a bit rude and is poisoning the well.
No, here's the simplest.
Not fair.
Here's the simplest response I can have to that. Human beings have been teaching birds to speak for 500 years. Has anybody in the last 20 years gotten a chimpanzee to speak an elucidated human speech?
What did I already say to that point? I've already said something.
If what you said were true, surely in the last 20 years, somebody should have made
What did I think back?
Wait. Now,
use your memory. What did I say about the brain? What did I say about the brain?
Stop interrupting me,
please. What did I say about the brain?
Stop interrupting me, please. I'm asking you a question. So, if what you say is true, and the scientists have been interested in this for the last 20 years, then surely there would be a video, a recording, an example whereby scientists have caused, by study and teaching, a chimpanzee to elucidate a single human sentence that's discernible as clearly human sounding speech. Is there any example?
So
or
what we've just heard.
otherwise?
I'm sorry,
I'm
guys.
just going to have to call what you're saying.
I just gotta stop it 1 second. Immutable said he has to go, so he just wants to say his farewell. Immutable, thanks for coming on, brother. We appreciate it.
Yeah, it was nice being on. Anyways, Matt, it was nice talking to you. It sounds like we both kind of accept the same general thing, just that we have different interpretations regarding some of the nuances. But hey, if you want to talk again, just hit me up on Google Plus or whatever. This is actually quite fun. Plus or minus.
Had a good time. Nice to meet
Yeah,
you.
stick around.
Thanks for coming on, Immutable. We'll do it again.
Okay, so
So
for
anyway,
20 years.
now that I can actually
if-
answer your question.
Okay, what we'll do is we'll let Crispr answer the question, and then go to Nephi's response. Go ahead.
Yeah, so thanks. So what we just heard from Neff is that he cannot keep track of the conversation for more than a couple minutes, because I said twice in this conversation that chimpanzees lack the brain, the necessary neurological pathways required for speech. They have the anatomical structures for speech, but they lack the neurological ones. So you cannot get a chimpanzee to talk because they lack the neurological structures, not because they lack the anatomical structures. I've said this at least twice now in this conversation, and Nephi apparently missed it both times.
Wow.
I don't know how he managed to do so. I said it clearly, but he keeps coming back to the same thing. Well, if they have the anatomical structures, how come nobody's been able to get one to talk? Because they don't have the neurological structures. Pretty simple.
Well, that's really interesting, because apparently birds do. And so this doesn't fit the evolution. It doesn't fit the evolution narrative. Human beings and chimpanzees are supposed to be extremely closely related. So it does not fit the narrative, obviously. Okay. And secondly, you can't provide in a single example whereby evolutionists, as hard as they try to prove their theory, have caused a chimpanzee to speak a single human sentence that is elucidated in a way that sounds human. So I'm just going. Oh yeah, wait. And now wait a minute. Now you're interrupting. Hold on. I'm not quite finished. Evolutionists love to do this when a response comes and you get 85% done with your response. They like to start talking over you because they don't want that last 15% to be heard. Okay, so let me finish. Okay, so when scientists are able to show that a chimpanzee can be taught to speak human language, then you'll have a case. Okay, but what we know is birds can speak it. Chimpanzees can't. They're supposed to be almost next to us in evolutionary time, and yet science studies from only 20 years ago say they don't have the physical features capable of it. No scientist has been able to produce it in 20 years. I think that's enough time. If you're going to claim bull BS on my quotes, say they're 20 years out of date, that should illustrate that evolutionists have been so ardent and at it to demonstrate their theory true. Somebody should have been able to get a chimpanzee to speak a sentence, "I need a banana right now," on a video, and everybody in the world see it, and it would be plugged into everybody's brain on television. So when you can do that, we'll have support for your idea.
So I think that the issue here is, and maybe Standing, you could speak on this, because several times at least I've been listening, Crispr has linked a reference. He has provided an explanation that seems to be accurate based upon my perusal of that reference, where the reason why chimpanzees and other primates cannot make the vocal demonstrations that humans do is because they are not neurologically wired. It's not an anatomical thing. And Neff has missed that point multiple times, so I have to believe that he's not following around. And it would be, nice that we agree on this factor. And as people who are minded towards science, not divided by one opinion.
All you're pointing out is that if chimpanzees are not neurologically wired for it, that's a failure of evolution theory. If birds are,
no, it's not, because
obviously
the way that hey, I didn't interrupt you. So the issue is that with your reasoning, Beth, is you're assuming that the way that let's say songbirds in specific, because I know a little bit about them, that the way that they are wired is meant to be the same way that humans are wired when it comes to this type of sound acquisition, let's call it. And the fact is that the neurobiology is quite different. It can model some of the basic processes of how these neurons are shaped, but they're independent mechanisms that evolved independently, and it is remarkable that they can make some of the same sounds, but you're making a very spurious argument.
That's just a what you're putting forth is what you're putting forth is a rescue device that's based on philosophy. It's not based on scientific evidence.
It's based on scientific evidence. I mentioned the wiring.
If what you said were regardless of what you say, it contradicts the evolution theory, since chimpanzees are supposedly so very closely related to human beings, and yet birds are capable of speaking extremely well elucidated human speech. So no matter what you say, it contradicts the evolution theory. It doesn't matter what you say. See?
So I think we should move on, because it's very clear at this.
Okay, this is what we'll do. This is what we'll do.
Like, he's just very clearly being dishonest here. So I think
see Crispr wants to say something. So what we'll do is we'll allow Crispr to say one final thing. We might have to agree to disagree, and maybe we can jump on to something more.
I'm sorry, I'm in a debate. Sure, please stop. I'm in a debate.
Okay, go ahead, Crispr.
Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to say is that when birds mimic human speech, they are in fact mimicking human speech. They are not using language, they are mimicking. When chimpanzees and gorillas use sign language, they are actually using sign language. That is not mimicry, that is actual use of language.
That's not vocal speech.
Now the point of that is that we have here demonstration of use of language, that the other apes can use language in the way that humans do, that birds cannot do. Even though birds, yes, can mimic human speech, they cannot utilize language. But the other apes can.
It still contradicts the evolution theory. The voice box of the chimpanzee seems incapable of doing it, while birds are able to do it. If 20 years of research is not enough for evolutionists to prove an idea,
so I said all of that and ignored it all completely.
No, he's just ignoring what we have to say, to be honest. And I'd appreciate some better moderation to actually keep them on point.
Well, look, you guys make assumptions and then can't provide evidence. Show me the video. That's all we want. Show me the chimpanzee saying, I need a banana right now, and we're good to go.
And the thing is,
so what we'll do here at this point is we'll either we might just have to agree to disagree on that one point, since we're on chimp to human, common ancestry, whether it's true or not. Did Crispr want to, because I know we kind of left that open-ended last time we had a big discussion with everybody. Did Crispr want to give what he believes is some empirical evidence for that relationship? And then maybe Neff can give his objections to that. Go ahead.
I'm not sure I got what your question was.
Well, maybe some evidence, whether it's genetics or whatever it is, homology wise, that points to an evolutionary relationship between chimpanzees and humans. And then, because we kind of touched on that last time when we all had a discussion with Jeremy, I think we talked about chromosome 2. We talked about the DNA differences, whether or not, what the percentage of relationship is. I'm sure you know what I mean now, Crispr. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a second. 1 second.
Like Nephi, do you feel that the evidence is sufficient, say at a genetic level, for chimp to human common ancestry, or do you feel is it true that it's 97% similar, or whatever it is these days, or how do you feel about what the evolutionists are saying in regards to that relationship? Go ahead.
Well, there's lots of evidence from genetics that humans cannot be related to chimpanzees. The chimpanzee genome is 10% larger than human beings. Human beings' DNA is about 7 feet long if you uncoil the molecule. The chimpanzees is 10% longer. Now, this would constitute a mutation load to build 10% more DNA in the distance of time between the human being and its common ancestor with chimpanzees that is so profoundly heavy that would render the organism extinct, both chimpanzees and human beings. To build 10% more DNA by mutation would constitute a mutation load that would cause both chimpanzees and human beings to become extinct in that period of time, based on genetic studies. It's impossible. Now, when it comes to linguistics, this is one of the real killers of evolution theory. Language is actually built into DNA. DNA is a language. It's a code, and it possesses linguistics properties of grammar, phonetics, semantics, punctuation, syntax, and acrobatics. Now, language requires forward thinking. It requires symbolism. Symbolism does not exist in chemistry or physics, period. Atoms, molecules, quarks, electrons, photons, neutrons, they do not, bosons, none of these material properties have the ability to forward think. They do not think about the future. All chemical interactions take place in the present. There are interactions that have taken place in the past. There are chemical interactions that will take place in the future. But all chemical interactions take place in the now. There is no such thing as forward thinking in chemistry. It's impossible. Nature does not allow or even give the
And I
properties.
apologize to interrupt,
Forward
Neff. If you just want to
But
sum it up,
genetic
I'm not stopping
information
you. If you just want to sum it up and then let them respond, go ahead.
Yeah,
brother.
sure. Genetic information is forward thinking. It's predictive, prescriptive, because it is organized linguistically. A real quick explanation. If I provided you the words, the fox, the brown over dog jumped lazy, that would make no sense to you. But if I organize those words into the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog, now it makes sense. That's the way genetic information is organized. It's called grammar. Okay, grammar exists because of language. Language exists in the DNA. Language is exemplary of intelligence. The fact that human language exists in the DNA molecule is empirical evidence that evolution is not only false, but completely impossible. It is impossible that evolution is true.
Okay, thanks for that, Neff. Whoever is because I noticed some dead air there. I assume Crispr wants to say something. I think Crispr has a slide there. Go ahead, Crispr.
Yeah, so I like to bring this up. This is from a website that I've used before. Anybody who wants to can go here and they can see this for themselves.
Can you speak louder, please? Can't hear you.
Yeah, you can adjust my volume on using your control panel.
It's already maximum here.
Yeah. Well, I think that can everybody else
And
hear
it's
me
choppy
okay?
also.
I can hear him fine. I think it's Jeremy's internet.
Okay, yeah, then you're gonna have to not
It's
interrupt
choppy.
me and just deal with it because everybody else is okay. So what this figure is basically showing is it's a synteny map with human chromosome 2 in the middle, and it's got the syntenic regions for mouse on the left and the syntenic regions for chimpanzee on the right. And you can see that to a really impressive extent, everything's in exactly the same order between human and chimpanzee. As you go through, all the way through until you get here, where suddenly it goes from blue to green, and that is, of course, from 2A to 2B in chimpanzee. And then everything else is all in exactly the same order on the other chromosome in chimpanzee. So this is just a really nice thing. There's no reason for all of this to be in the same order, absent evolutionary theory. right? There's no reason for every little piece of this to be in the same order in chimpanzee as it is on human. Why not have it in this order? Because the genes could be the same. The actual sequence of the proteins and all the regulatory regions could be exactly the same, but have the ordering of those regions be completely different. There's no reason you couldn't do that if you were, just making these things from scratch. And yet, that's not what we find. So I think that's a pretty strong piece of evidence. But it's all about the what's the most parsimonious explanation. And honestly, you look at data like this, and I think it's pretty clear which is the most parsimonious explanation.
Okay, I appreciate you presenting that to us. Either Neff or Jeremy want to respond to that?
Yeah, I would. I would say that similarities are often assumed as evidence of evolutionary ancestry, but those are just assumptions. Now, let me provide for you an
May I say something?
elucidation of why linguistics disproves evolution theory. Can you see what I'm providing on the screen? On my screen sharing? Can someone tell me in my screen sharing?
I see it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, good. The linguistics properties of DNA verify in properties intelligent language because language is a code system employing symbols that represent objects, concepts, or processes, and the implication of meaning and interpretation of a meaning from a symbol is a mental process, not a material one. Minds impart meaning to matter. Matter does not impart meaning to itself. The symbolism of language originates with intelligence and cannot be produced by material processes. The linguistics of grammar of genetic information is more complex than the most complex language of human grammar. Genetic information is prescriptive and it possesses all kinds of linguistics properties. Start, pause, stop, more, less, ignore, express more often, organized words, sentences, structures like this.
And then
Phonetics,
phonetics,
semantics, punctuation, syntax, and grammar. Okay. Now, these things require intelligence. It is therefore impossible for evolution to be true because mindless, undirected, unguided, unintelligent molecular material processes are absolutely, completely incapable of producing linguistics. They cannot organize matter in a logical sense so that they speak an objective and prescribe something. That's not possible because matter is not forward thinking. Therefore, evolution theory is false. Any and all claims of evolution theory are false based on the fact that the genetic molecule is a material medium which is physically encoded by using a code system, is filled with information which is organized linguistically and operates algorithmically. Information, linguistics, algorithms, aboutness, forward thinking, intentionality, the process of attending, and the observation of time all require intelligence. Therefore, all living forms, because they depend upon information in the genome of that organism, cannot be a product of evolution. They have to be and can only be a product of intelligent design because of the properties of the genetic information. Modern science has squashed evolution theory. Evolutionists won't give it up because their worldview depends on it.
May I say something? I want to address Crispr's map.
Yes. Okay. So we'll have you, Jeremy, address his map then.
Is my audio doing well? Is my audio doing well?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, it's doing better.
Yeah, because it's very choppy around here. It's choppy. Maybe it's my internet.
We can hear you, brother. Did you want to give your
If you turn your camera off, that'll reduce the bandwidth that you're using.
May I ask Crispr, how many nucleotides or bases are involved in that chart? That's in Dr. Dennis Venom's book, and if I'm not mistaken, Richard Dawkins also used that in his book. So how many bases are involved?
Yeah.
Just give me an estimate, not exact number. It's okay. Hello?
Sorry, you're coming through very, very faintly for me.
You can't hear me?
He asked how many bases were on that.
Okay, actually,
that
now
synteny
everybody's
map.
coming through really faintly for me.
I-
Give me 1 second to switch my audio over.
I think
I
that's
know
you.
the answer. I know the answer. I want to hear it from you.
Oh, he's switching his audio. He won't hear you now.
Why is it relevant? Can I just ask, like, why is it relevant how many nucleotides it is? Because I mean, that doesn't. I'm just speaking as someone who publishes on genetics, but I can tell you, for example, and I gave this example on the side. I know what the SPI1 gene does. Like I know what it does with fairly reasonable certainty because it's very common to the cells that I use. But I couldn't tell you how many nucleotides it is, but I can tell you quite a bit about the function of the gene. So why is it relevant? How many nucleotides? If I'm someone who's able to conduct like peer-reviewed research on it.
All right, I will answer that question. Remember the insulin, what you call that again? What did you open up? What gene? The insulin peptide gene which you opened up. Oh.
No, I mentioned the SPI. I mentioned the SPI1 gene. It's also known as PU1. It's a lineage determining transcription factor in macrophages.
Because the insulin peptide gene.
I didn't talk about insulin at all.
So you're asking me why I'm asking how many nucleotides? Correct?
Yeah, I'm saying that if it's not relevant to do,
it is relevant. I will prove it to you right now. Can you please let me speak, sir? I will prove it to you.
You're cutting out a lot, so it's not. I'm not interrupting you because it's because your internet is so shitty. Like I think you need to turn off the camera.
Okay, what we'll do, Jeremy, if you want to go ahead, if you want to go ahead and speak and give your points. Go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. Because in the insulin peptide gene, there is a redundancy that is, is the word redundancy correct? Sorry for my English, or back up, or whatever. There is a redundancy shared across animals, and it shows a nested hierarchy. So when I asked Biologos how many nucleotides are involved in this nested hierarchy, which they say is a proof of common ancestry, I got a surprising answer. Only 330 nucleotides. And they even told me that this is not sure. It could even be lower. So I asked again, how can you create a nested hierarchy based on just 330 nucleotides? And then then after that, they suggested another nested hierarchy to me. And that's why I have to ask how many nucleotides that is. The map is. I know the answer. I just wanted Crispr to tell me.
I don't see why it's relevant though. Like my point is that this kind of stuff is because it's trivialities, right? Like so I could if my example again was going to be the SPI1 gene, right?
I'm really
and this
curious.
is a gene that I need to know a lot about. I didn't interrupt you. I didn't interrupt anyone, so I don't know.
Sorry.
I'm being interrupted. So the reason I brought this up is because like I can tell you about a gene that I know actually quite a lot about. It's the SPI1 gene, or PU1. It's a transcription factor, right? I can tell you a lot about how it operates because, and this just happens to be incidental to the lab that I work in and the cell lines that we use, as well as just the cell types that we use. And if I know quite a bit about this gene. I couldn't tell you how many nucleotides exactly it is, but I could look it up easily because it's just trivia, right? Like I can literally just type it in. If I did SPI1 gene cards, right? Like that's a common website. Oh, look, first result. So it's not, that type of stuff is just trivia. So I'm wondering why that's actually relevant here.
Okay, go ahead, Jeremy. We'll let him talk now. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Mr. Sam, you did not get my point. Even Biologos admit that 330 nucleotide subset is not enough to prove common ancestry. So if I
What does that have
determine
to
the
do with
amount
what
of
I?
nucleotides
What does that have
involved,
to do with what I said?
I'm sorry.
Okay, okay, we're
You
talking
keep-
about. Okay, we're talking
It
about the
looks
slide
because
here,
it looks
so-
cherry picked. See 330 nucleotides to infer common ancestry.
He's using the entire chromosome, so obviously that's not a relevant objection here.
Nucleotides is not even 0.1% of the genome. It's not
Yeah, but he's using
0.0001%.
Hey,
He's
You
using
see
an
that?
entire chromosome, though, so
Jeremy, can I ask you a
that's not a
question?
relevant. That's not a relevant objection because
Jeremy.
he's using an entire
Well,
chromosome.
Sam, just
I'd
Even
like to ask a
biologos
let me cut
actually,
in, please.
even biologos. So now you interrupt me. See, we're just the
Well,
same.
your internet completely cut out, so we couldn't hear what you were saying.
Jeremy,
I
since
don't know
you
if
like
that
to-
was just me, but his
330
internet completely
nucleotides.
cut off.
330 nucleotides, very
Standing,
spread
please.
apart.
please
So,
let
so
me.
how many bases are included there, CRISPR?
Okay, first, because you keep bringing it up, how many nucleotides are in the full sequence of the insulin precursor?
10,000.
330.
Hello?
There are 330. It's
It's 10,000
110.
you include the
It is 110 residues long, the protein, which means it corresponds to 330 nucleotides for the actual translated protein. Now then, let's talk about my slide. Since I finished
Can hear you.
your stuff on your slide, let's talk about mine. My slide,
What slide?
the thing I'm screen sharing, this thing here is based on.
Can't hear you.
Yeah, he needs to fix his computer setup.
Turn off your video, you will get better bandwidth.
Hello?
Turn off your video.
Okay, what I want to do is. Okay, hey Jeremy, can you hear me?
Hello?
Jeremy, can you? Jeremy, can you hear me? Can you hear the words that are coming out of my mouth?
It's very choppy.
Okay, it's not choppy for us. So, are you saying you can't hear what I'm saying? Okay, you know what, Jeremy? Turn off your webcam, and then that'll.
There you go. Is that better?
It's the same.
Okay, we can hear
It's the
you
same.
good.
I still
Okay.
can't hear.
Okay, can you hear what I'm saying?
Hello?
Obviously, he can't. So I think
Hello?
this is
Well,
the time at which his participation has to end.
Can I ask a question in the meantime, in the interim, while he's getting his? Let me ask a question. Since I disproved evolution theory with the fact that DNA is information organized linguistically, which operates algorithmically, and therefore evolution can't be true, why would evolutionists refuse to accept that creation is true? Is it not because the idea that a designer points to a deity, and this is something that's immorally abhorrent to them? Is that not true? Isn't it true that you refuse to accept creation, even though I have proved empirically that creation is true and evolution cannot be true, because DNA is information, it's a physical medium encoded with information with a code system that operates, that's organized linguistically and operates algorithmically, and the information, linguistics, and algorithms are only products of an intelligence, of mind only. Material processes cannot create linguistics, algorithms, or information. Isn't it true that evolutionists, who are ardent evolutionists, refuse to accept the scientific evidence, this proof of intelligent design for all life, because it points to divinity, and they find the idea of a moral judge over them to be abhorrent? Isn't that correct? Isn't that really why you refuse to accept creation in lieu of modern scientific discovery?
No, it's just your arguments aren't convincing at all.
So
and
you're saying
data-
DNA is not
Hello?
information linguistics,
interrupt
organized
you,
linguistically
so I don't know why
and
I don't
algorithmically?
know why you're interrupting me. Like I don't know why I have to listen to you whistle through your teeth for 3 minutes and then I get 2 words out and you have to interrupt me. I mean, I think you could talk at a wall and get the same enjoyment, to be honest.
Okay.
So can I finish my thought? Is that cool?
Sure,
Or-
me. Sure,
Okay.
explain.
It's just
Yeah.
your arguments. It's because your arguments aren't convincing and the data for evolution is overwhelming.
Okay, so
No,
but
It
because
has
you're
nothing to do with
biased.
but
it has
isn't it
nothing
not
to do with
true?
that.
But is it not true that DNA is information which is organized linguistically and possesses algorithmic information processing? Isn't that not true?
No, it's not.
Whoa, so
No,
you
it's
just
not.
denied all of science. Well, thank you so much. I don't need any more proof that you deny evolution because of the moral implications than
Yeah.
that. So
I'm
you
sure
just denied 9,000 papers in the science journals
I'm
that
sure that
prove that DNA is information which is organized, possesses linguistics properties, and operates algorithmically. You're saying those papers are not real? They don't exist?
no, I'm saying you
if you
don't
could produce
understand them.
one of them, yeah, you don't understand them, and if you could produce them, we
Wait.
can read them.
But are you saying that these papers do not state that genetic information is organized linguistically? Are you saying that?
Well, the ones that I've had you link in the past, it's very clear that you haven't read past the
So,
abstract.
Are
Because
you
when you
saying
read in the discussion, and I did not interrupt you, so I don't know why you keep interrupting me. I don't. Is my internet bad?
No, you're fine.
Crispr's my internet. Oh no, then you're just a rude bastard. So the thing is Neffy, whenever you link these
It's hot.
papers that supposedly discredit or excuse me, supposedly enumerate these properties, what ends up happening is inevitably I read the results or discussion section, and the authors end up saying, well, no, this is just a model that we use to look at these statistical frequencies.
So let me ask you another question then. If DNA were information organized linguistically, which operates algorithmically, would you not acknowledge that these properties of sentience, information, linguistics, and algorithms? Let me say a little bit more about linguistics. Linguistics requires symbolism. For example, if we have a plastic text character shaped like an A, it doesn't make the sound A. It's matter organized and arranged in a way that can be interpreted as a sound. The sound is not found in the material. The A doesn't make a sound. It requires intelligence to look at the symbol and say that represents something external to the text character. You understand? Okay, so that's symbolism. All language, all linguistics requires symbolism. It takes intelligence to apply a meaning to matter or to interpret meaning from a symbol. Either way, requires an intelligence, period. Okay, so if DNA is information which is organized linguistically, which requires symbolism and forward thinking. Okay, so and the application of a meaning to a symbol or interpretation of a meaning from a symbol, which requires intelligence. And if it is operates algorithmically, and algorithms are mathematical processes designed to compare information and determine what work must be done based on the outcome of the comparison of that information. Say, I need to find A, B, C, D, and G. Okay, so let's search down the string and find A, B, C, D, and G. We found it. Now we need to go back to and find out what we got to do now that we found it. Now a choice is necessary. You see what I mean? So algorithms require choice statements, and if, and then when, and what for statements. That is an intelligent process. It's not a chemical one, right? So if DNA is actually information organized linguistically and operates algorithmically, would you not acknowledge that creation and intelligent design is true, because at this point, you're saying it's not true that DNA is information organized linguistically and operates algorithmically. That's what I just heard you say. But I'm just asking, I'm positing, if it's true that DNA is information which is organized linguistically and does operate algorithmically, would it not be true that an intelligence has designed it?
Guys,
Are you done, or are you
can I say
that's
something?
my question.
yourself 5 more times?
Would that not be true?
Crispr, may we address the map?
So,
So let's hear him respond.
I
Okay,
mean,
we're
I
gonna
don't
let Sam
accept the
respond.
premise of your. I don't accept your premise, and also there's a theory out there,
What does that mean?
which I
You
don't know if
accept
I.
my premise? Can you explain
Okay,
that?
are
Is
you not?
that
Are
your
you
cover?
gonna let me? Are you gonna let me get my thoughts out? Or are you gonna
Well,
continually
that-
interrupt me?
That sounds like
Do
a
you
glove
have-
box explanation. Can you?
Do
Can
you have
explain
a? I didn't get to complete my thought. Hey, Standing, can we pretend that you're like actually an unbiased, fair person, or are you just gonna let him, be a dickhead the entire time?
Don't put your explanations into a suitcase. Explain them.
Okay, so what we'll do is
I
we'll
did-
let Sam.
I didn't get more
what
than
time
10
he
words
needs
out, and this incompetent moron who's running
make
his
these.
room doesn't seem to understand what like a civil conversation's meant to
It's
to
a
be
simple
like. So,
question.
Okay, we're gonna
can
let
you let
Sam.
me? I'm going to ignore his
Devon,
interruption.
Can I
Go
talk
ahead.
about the map,
So,
Crispr?
It's a simple question.
is there a reason why I can't be allowed to answer a question, or
Yeah,
why
I
like
just
getting
don't
this
want glove box
limp-wristed?
explanations.
Okay, guys,
I
this is
didn't.
what we're gonna
Can you
do.
let me finish the thought there? I understand you enjoy the sound.
Can I
that
talk to
happens.
Crispr for a while?
Okay, so what I was going to say is I don't accept the premise of the question, which is the idea that DNA is algorithmic. I mean, it's just clearly not. If you know anything about algorithms, I could bring out an algorithms textbook. I'm looking at one right now. And by any definition, DNA doesn't actually operate that way. So beyond that point, there's a theory out there that David Deutsch likes to put forward is the idea that the universe, and I don't buy this, but it's plausible, it's not impossible, that the universe is actually a universal Turing machine. And so you can sort of think of our universe as a giant computation system. That would be one way of thinking about it. And thus you'd have a completely naturally arising computation system. There's nothing about that. It's just describing how the system works. I think Nephi's making the mistake of confusing a description with a prescription. And so that's all I needed to say.
Crispr, are you there? Can you hear me? Can you hear me well enough?
Okay,
Yeah,
so category error. You moved the argument from biology to the to astronomy to the cosmos. Okay, that's a humongous goalpost move. Okay, so the question was very simple, and so you said you denied that DNA operates algorithmically. Okay, so are you saying that by saying that you're saying that all the science papers published in the secular journals that describe algorithmic information processing, in fact, DNA computing, to be false? Because do you know what DNA computing is? DNA computing is this: scientists study the DNA, they discover their algorithms in it, and then they discern the algorithm by doing this. By using a computer algorithm, they write a computer algorithm. It doesn't match very well to what the DNA is doing. So write a better one. Doesn't match quite well, but it matches better, and they keep doing it and doing it, and until they find something that very closely matches and say, aha, we found it. So they found the algorithmic process that's going on in the DNA by a computer programmer writing an algorithm that matches what the molecular machines in the DNA are doing when they read the DNA. So that is verification that the process is going on in the DNA molecule in the cell with the machinery and its relationship to the cell, to the DNA, is in fact algorithmic. So then what they've discovered is that these algorithms are superior to the ones that computer programmers have been writing for 40 years. Okay, so now you're telling me that it's not algorithmic. Now that contradicts about, I don't know, 190 papers in the science journals that say they discover genetic information processing in the cell is in fact algorithmic. So what you've just said is you don't believe science there, and now so you don't believe science because you believe evolution. That's what I'm hearing.
Okay,
And
awesome. Thanks
So
for
you're
that.
just plainly can't respond.
No, yeah, I'm going to say you take as much time as you need to address what he's saying, and then we're just going to try to see if Jeremy can hear Crispr. Once you're done, of course, Sam, just to see if they can end it off with them talking about that slide real quick. I think that's important. Go ahead.
Okay. So very clearly, again, we've established that Nephi has a very big inability to both read scientific literature as well as listen. So what I said is that you can describe some of the operations, you can imbue statistical models onto them. That doesn't make the actual operation statistical in nature. Those are two different things.
scientists
I did not interrupt you. Do you have some sort of learning difficulty where you can't grasp this? Were you not spanked enough as a child? Like, what went wrong in your upbringing? Okay, I'm going to finish this now. So when you actually look at the performance of the algorithms that attempt to actually model the way that DNA works, the best performing of these use a technique known as deep learning. You've probably heard about this. It's a very intense, computationally intense algorithm that essentially will be able to learn the relevant features and then model what's going on. The performance level on those, and these are for very modest things like predicting gene regulatory networks, transcription factor binding sites, all of these things, they all perform much, much more poorly than a lot of precision algorithms. I think the best that they tend to get is an overall performance of around 0.6 or like 60%, somewhere between 60 and 70%. So either Neff has just never read any of this literature, or he just hasn't kept up with any of the recent developments in deep learning. The idea that because we can model the cell, and extremely noisily, by the way, these don't work very well, these models, and that's something that he's not being forthcoming about. When you actually look at the literature, statistically, they don't work very well. What you don't realize is that these are noisy systems that we can't completely phenotype, and that these papers, they're very interesting scientifically. I'm not trying to disparage them, but the idea that we can model a cell or model the activity of DNA is just complete hogwash and overhyping. And that's just based on the science, and I can link you several papers that actually do it.
Because I just provided in the side chat 3 of the numerous studies that say that algorithmic processes are discerned in the DNA. For example, one statement states, we are applying the principles and methods of information theory and coding theory to incorporate phenomenon, listen carefully, incorporate phenomenon observed on different levels of abstraction of the genomic error correction system. This method for rigorous treatment of DNA repair enables describing its functions quantitatively and algorithmically. The paper is titled Error Correction Algorithms and DNA Repair. So it's been discovered that the DNA repair mechanism operates algorithmically. So you're saying it's not true, but scientists are saying
you didn't link that publication.
Algorithms exist in the DNA, and in fact, numerous algorithms exist in the DNA. So what you're saying is it's not true. What you're doing is, as I've always said, you and all evolutionists are doing is denying modern scientific discovery because of your antiquated philosophy that evolution must be true. And if intelligent processes such as information, linguistics, and algorithms exist in DNA, evolution can't be true. And therefore, you're determined to deny the numerous scientific publications that discern algorithmic processes, linguistics, and information in DNA. So your ideas of evolution are anti-science because they're antiquated. I'm sorry, you're just in denial of modern science.
Well, you didn't link that reference unless you're talking about the lab.
Feel free to do your own research.
Unless you're just talking about the lab description, which, I mean, that's a lab description. That's not actually anything that's rigorous science. The first thing that you linked
it's not rigorous science.
The second thing you linked was just a lab discussion. It wasn't actually rigorous.
So lab
the first
discussion
thing you linked was a statistical model. The first thing that you linked was just a statistical model, which, again, you can't go from a statistical model that's a prescription, or no, excuse me, that is a description to a prescription. You've made a critical error there in over-interpreting what a statistical model is.
So you're just
I don't think you quite understand the nature of statistics. I doubt you can spell it.
Well, look, these scientists that write these papers are more advanced in these things than you, and they say
how do you know that?
They see algorithmic processes. They write that that's what they find in the DNA, and you're in denial of it. That's all there is to it.
How do you know they're more advanced than me?
Well, these people are experts in genetics. You're not?
So am I.
Well, okay. So you're denying all the experts in science in genetics. Okay.
No, I'm just informing you that.
Thank you so much.
I'm informing you that you actually don't have any grasp of the literature.
You
actually understand the methods that are involved here.
Well, you have a better understanding of it than all the science papers that discuss algorithms discovered in DNA repair mechanisms and DNA search and replace processes. You know,
well, again, they're modeling the process. You're mixing up a model with the actual action of the molecules. Right?
So they say it's algorithms.
These aren't algorithms here, and so you seem to make a continual error. And it's really odd because me and Crispr keep pointing this out in the inside chat, and you just you kind of ignore it, and so that leads me to believe that you don't possess the actual faculties to engage in an honest conversation here. Because as I've explained, when we look at the actual performance of these types of modeling algorithms, and I can find a couple of them if you would like me to. Nature Genetics just wrote, or Nature Genetics or Nature Reviews Genetics? One of the two. Their last issue, no, it's Nature Genetics. Their last issue had a whole primer on machine learning algorithms, deep learning, in fact, for DNA sequences. And so you can look at those references. I can provide that for you if you want to actually look at it. But again, you're confusing modeling with the actual thing, right? Just because humans can model a process doesn't mean that somehow there was a design in that process. It just means that humans were able to cast a mathematical model.
Right. I hear this all the time. I hear it all the time. It's like evolutionists saying, that's not really a car. It just looks like one, so we call it a car. So that's not actually an algorithm. It operates exactly like one, and we call it one, but it's not really an algorithm.
Well, DNA doesn't operate like an algorithm at all. I don't really know where you're going from that, other than your
This is the science denialism that we hear from evolutionists like yourself. You can't stand modern scientific discovery. So what you're saying
you're referencing things from a decade ago, whereas I'm referencing something that came out last week. So I'm wondering who's the nihilist here. If I'm the one referencing modern science, I'm kind of confused.
Zane Basic and Shashi Kilpadri are completely wrong when they say the DNA repair mechanism operates algorithmically. They're wrong, and you're right. So you have the knowledge.
Can you provide the actual peer-reviewed reference on that? Because you didn't provide it in
you have the knowledge that overturns the numerous science papers that have been published that describe having observed algorithmic processes in DNA. Wow, thanks so much. I appreciate that.
Well, no, I think, again, you're mixing up a description and a model with the actual thing.
I know, it can't be really an algorithm.
And this is a big issue for you, right? So, like, if I say that, for example, the reads in the gene expression experiment can be modeled by a Poisson process, that doesn't literally mean that they are a Poisson process. It just means that that's a statistical approximation of what my estimation should be on the basis of that experimental design. So, I mean, again, we can't, as good scientists, we can't confuse the model for the actual thing. The model is just a way of us understanding.
So you're saying that reverse engineering a thing to discover its properties is worthless. We can't do that anymore.
No, not at all. I just don't think that
Wait, that's just what
anything that you said. I mean, again, we
you
can't
just said that
confuse
we
the
can't
model.
reverse engineer the processes of
No, I
genetic.
didn't. Where did I say? When did I say
And-
that? I'm
and
confused
this-
what my exact words were.
Wait,
I remember
excuse
them.
me.
I spoke
All right,
them.
look, I know you're challenged like crazy, and that's why you can't stop talking over me. I understand.
I mean, you've been the one
I just-
interrupting me,
look,
so I don't know where you're getting this attitude about it.
I've just kicked your worldview right into the garbage can. You're really pissed about
I just kicked your
it. I know,
worldview.
I know that. Because
I'm a better piece, so I mean, like, I win on multiple levels.
here's the thing. So what you're saying, what we're hearing from you is that we can't reverse engineer the genetic processes and discover what they're doing.
That's
And
not what I said.
if we do, and it looks algorithmic, we cannot accept that it's algorithmic. That's what I'm hearing from you. And that's
In what respect do
the
genetic
evolution-
processes look
is-
algorithmic? Can I ask you?
that is exactly the evolutionist operandi, is that if we discover modern incredible technology in the genome, it absolutely cannot be true, and so we have to deny it no matter what. And this is all you're doing, and I thank you for it, is demonstrating the evolutionists are anti-scientific, refuse to accept modern scientific data because it kicks evolution theory right in the crotch. And that's, I'm pleased to hear it. Thank you.
Well, I'm wondering, what exactly is the algorithmic process? Because I haven't seen you outline it. The papers that you linked are not actually relevant to that. So I'm wondering what it actually is, because you seem to ignore the actual deep learning literature out there, which doesn't perform well.
Well,
when we actually try to model this stuff, the best performing algorithms, and I'm shocked because Nature Genetics just last week or the week before revealed a whole primer on this. So you could have learned how to do this, but yet you're not familiar with this. So it's very curious. It's almost as if you're insecure about your worldview, because, you know, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in your head. But I'm wondering, in what way does the genome actually act algorithmically? Because I haven't heard that description. I can grab an algorithms textbook if you want to, like, to see if, you know, if you can actually describe it in that way.
Well, I pointed out that choices are made, choice statements in algorithms. This demonstrates that all algorithms are products of intelligence, because a choice is made that requires intelligence. Molecules
well, how does DNA do that?
Molecules.
That's what I know how algorithms work.
Molecules don't choose anything. Molecules are just dumb bits of matter. They don't choose anything. So intelligence is required for an algorithm, because it requires all kinds of intelligent processes, such as searching for something that's specific instead of something random. It also includes when what it matches what was predicted to exist is found, then a choice must be made as to what to do with that information. That's what algorithms do. Now, if you look up in the information, if you scroll up in the chat here, I'll paste it one more time for you. An actual algorithm, where right here, I'm going to paste it one more time. This is an actual algorithm that occurs in the DNA system. A computer programmer was asked, this was explained, this are all the exact steps that take place in the DNA repair mechanism for this particular one function. Can you write a computer program that simulates what's happening? And that, it turns out to be algorithmic. It's a freaking algorithm. Okay, so it's not like creationists when they say, well, it kind of looks like an, no, it's not kinda, it is exactly an algorithmic. That's what Vane Basic, Sashi Shobodrik, and numerous other scientists have written in their science papers. When they examine the DNA repair mechanism and other processes in the DNA, it operates exactly like an algorithm, because it is algorithmic. And so what you find here in the side chat here that I pasted is an actual DNA algorithm written in computer programming code for exactly what's happening in the DNA molecule. It's not like it, it's not similar, it's exactly what the DNA is doing, and it is algorithmic. It's more complex mathematics than the typical layperson understands. So all I'm hearing is that you're in
So are you
denial
done?
of modern science.
Okay,
Modern science has discovered that DNA is information, linguistics, and algorithms. And that proves not only intelligent design, but special creation. Evolution is therefore false. But because you're so married to your worldview, you can't even accept the fact that that scientists are discovering algorithmic processes in DNA. And I am completely on board with you. I feel you, pal. I know where you're coming from. I understand. I understand your
Are you
pain.
done now? Can
I
we
understand
wrap
your
it
pain.
up, please? Yeah, you've repeated yourself about 4 times again. That seems to be your
I
normal
understand your
quota.
pain.
So, it's really funny because what Crispr ended up linking in the side was the actual blog post that this comes from. And when I teach bioinformatics algorithms, or when I did, I don't teach it anymore, we would actually have a question that did this. Most lay people could write this question, could write this algorithm. It's not that advanced. So it's just a simple transcription algorithm. I know you think that, but you are not very.
No, that's computer
smart.
programming.
So you need to, okay.
Are you saying
I got you there, buddy. I know. And that's a useful button for me. So when
most
Crispr was able to actually find that. Okay. Yeah. You done there, buddy?
Most laypersons know
done there?
computer programming. That's what you just claimed.
Most lay people with a very scant introductory programming, like 2 weeks of a course, could learn this.
Most
It's very
laypersons.
easy.
No.
The algorithm that you just wrote in the side, most people could learn that. It's very simple.
Most laypersons know computer programming, like you said. That's what you said.
That's not what I said. I said most lay people, if they learned it, they could do it easily.
Now you're
so now you can. Hey, Evan, did I interrupt you during your huge long speech where you flagellated yourself?
Everything you say is a blow.
You need to be quiet now. So this is a remarkably simple algorithm that is incredibly easy to do.
Facts
and also, what you've done is you've made a mistake, and I understand it. You're a Christian. You feel like your worldview is evaporating in the face of actual data and people like me who go into labs and actually produce something for society. The issue here, precisely, is that all you've done is provide an algorithm that models what transcription and error correction would be. That's a model. That's not the actual thing. That's not the actual molecular players that do it. When biochemists actually talk about it, they don't refer to it as code. They refer to it as the actual molecules doing something. So again, you've made the critical error where you confuse a very surface level model. I can easily write a program that can simulate translation of a genetic segment. That's actually really easy to write because, codon charts are easy to understand. Matt talked about that earlier. It's pretty cool, right?
You're not explaining why it's algorithmic.
Hey,
May I say something?
Type down there. So the whole thing is that you just don't seem to be able to understand that you're not linking a scientific source. You're linking what seems to be a blog post.
No, those are science sources.
You seem to really ignore what the body of literature seems to say, which is that it's actually hard to model these things algorithmically. And I wonder how you sleep at night knowing that your faith is destroyed by people like me who do honest, good scientific work.
May I say something?
No, you just denied the science papers that I posted in here, which are, you said I provided one that came from a blog about written by a scientist. I provided 3 science papers. Okay,
which paper doesn't describe what you're
algorithmic processes. What I just provided, last one is another one. So they describe the DNA processes as algorithmic because they reverse engineer what the cell is doing, and it's discovered that it's algorithmic. And
that's
this is what
this
numerous. Look, I've already provided sources in the side chat here.
Well, I'm confused because this source.
I've already provided science papers in the side chat here that do that very thing.
Oh no, they don't actually. So I'm reading your link.
I do.
I'm actually reading your link, and it doesn't actually support your case. So I'm kind of confused why you would link it.
So you're in denial that the science papers say what they say. Wow.
No, I'm not. I'm actually reading the paper.
So-
Did you actually read this?
Unbelievable. Okay, so Dr. Vane's basic and Sashi Kilpatrick are completely wrong when they say then when they reverse engineer DNA's DNA repair mechanism, they discover that it's algorithmic and the process is algorithmic. Are you in denial of that?
Again, you've linked a blog post for that.
Well, okay, so I'll ask the question again. Sashi Chilpadrick and Vane Basic write in their paper that when they reverse engineer the DNA repair mechanism,
You
that they
haven't linked
find
the paper
that the
for
product the process is
that. You need to link the actual
algorithmic.
paper before
are
I
you
actually
going
accept
to
your
say-
claim. You
Okay.
haven't linked
Can
the
I say
paper.
something?
Okay, wait, I'm done. I'm just getting
Yep.
into it. Okay, so
I don't know how you get through life being such a denialist.
we're
No.
done. I'm just going to point out that you're in denial of all science that I provided, and that's all
You
I need.
haven't provided any. You've
Because
provided one.
evolutionism
You've provided
is-
one
evolutionism
proceeding from
is
what seems to be a conference.
Excuse me.
commission,
Evolutionism is
which
science
doesn't match
denial.
what you're saying. It's just a
Excuse me.
simple statistical modeling.
Excuse me.
And
Evolution
then
is-
you're
wait.
provided a blog post.
Evolution
So-
is science denialism, and that's what you guys are doing. Because I could provide, if I wanted to,
Well, creationism
about-
is intellectual
excuse me,
laziness.
excuse me. I could provide about 90 papers in the science journals which state when they reverse engineer the operations of the cellular machinery in relation to the DNA, they find it's algorithmic. And you're in denial of every bit of it, and that's all we need to know. Thank you.
No.
may I
So
say
what we
something?
need to know here,
Thank
and what we need to know here is actually that
Sandy?
Neff has linked a blog post for those they can't see. It's just a random blog post from an outlined project. And then he's linked a paper, which isn't really a paper, it's a conference proceedings, but whatever. That is just a statistical modeling of frequency of different signals in DNA. So evidently, statistical modeling means intelligence. If it's entertaining what goes on in the mind of this guy.
Can I say something?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, about what you said, Sam, that the worldview of Neph is being threatened. May I
I'm just
ask you
being
this?
sarcastic. I was being sarcastic, Jeremy. It's because he was continually just making personal attacks and repeating himself. So I just decided to throw that as a tactic back at himself because he doesn't actually address any of the science, and he decides to link a blog post rather than actually linking a research paper, and then links a conference proceedings paper, which he clearly didn't read, that doesn't support his case.
All right.
So evolutionists deny modern science because it can't be true, because then evolution is true. If information,
Okay,
if DNA is information, linguistics, and algorithms, evolution can't be true. They know that. So going to deny all reverse engineering of DNA molecular interactions and discover they're algorithmic in nature, and say no, it's not really an algorithm. You know, we hear this diatribe from evolutionists all the time. It's ridiculous and childish. Is this idea that it looks like a car, but crying out loud, we only call it a car because it's convenient. It's not really a car.
Those papers don't actually
it's not
call
really
those papers don't call it design.
all of the ones.
So I'm kind of confused by that. I mean, you're the one making the unjustified assertion.
point
Like,
out
I
that
actually read the paper
this
that you've linked, and you linked one paper, which was not actually a paper; it was a conference proceedings,
we can
as
see how
well as a
desperate.
random blog post. So I'm wondering if you have another paper, perhaps you want to link,
Well, you know
because
what?
these two links do not support your case.
Well, that's what you think. But you know what? If you were to actually inform yourself by studying the subject of DNA and algorithms, and you would find that there are gobs of papers that describe it.
Crispr,
What you
Crispr,
probably ought to do
you help
is,
me with my Senate exam, Crispr. Do you want to tell Nephi what I do?
hello. So what you probably ought to do is start reading, because but here's what we evolutionists always do. It can't really be information, because that can't be true. It can't really be an algorithm because, gee, that would imply intelligent design. It can't really be linguistics laws found in DNA because, gee, that requires intelligence. So what we see is, of course, evolutionists, as creationists, so correctly point out. So that evolutionism is a denial of modern science because it's an antiquated philosophy born in a day when nobody knew what the hell was going on in a cell. It looked like a membrane filled with goo, and nobody understood anything about what was going on. And that's when Charles Darwin wrote his infamous stupid book where he thought organisms changed in their anatomy simply because they needed to flop around on the shores of a dying lake. So it's an antiquated idea, and evolutionists have to deny modern science, thousands upon thousands of papers, because if what the papers say are true, evolution can't be true. So you're in denial of modern science.
Okay, we got it. You're on repeat number 4 now.
Because
So
you cannot
we should wrap
accept
it up. Let's play the
creation is true.
Oscars wrap it up music.
Because
Wrap it up. So CRISPR,
I want to
I had
test
a
something.
question for
Jeremy.
CRISPR.
I want to see
because of a
actually.
moral
I want
issue.
to see if CRISPR can hear Jeremy, so we can wrap it up here with this slide. Since CRISPR put it up, maybe it would be a good way to end it there. Okay, CRISPR, try, if you can, be so kindly, try and say something. We're going to see if Jeremy can. Jeremy, can you hear me? Okay.
Standing for truth. Standing for truth. I already understand the chart CRISPR showed. I've already
Yeah, we
seen
just
it.
want to make sure that you can hear CRISPR, though.
So if he explains it in detail again, we're gonna waste time.
No, I just want to make sure that you can hear CRISPR.
Sorry.
So CRISPR, you don't need to explain it all again, but let's just make sure that Jeremy can hear you because there was an issue last time. Okay.
Sure. Can you hear me?
It's can you speak louder? I can hear standing for truth very well, but you seem your sound is what's the English word of that? Is weak. Is weak.
Well, I mean, I can adjust my volume slightly, but it's usually been okay for most people. So
okay, Jeremy, I can hear him just fine.
I'll just put my ears near the whatever it is, the volt speaker. Yeah.
Okay, so why don't you tell us what you think about the slide there, Jeremy?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I will not deny that slide looks like common ancestry. I will not deny. There is there are CRISPR, can you please? Oh, never mind. There is a combination of homology, synteny, pseudogenes, and I forgot. Is there redundancy too over there, CRISPR?
it's only synteny.
There are pseudogenes too, correct? They've sequenced
Each line. This one. Sorry. Each line of this is a very large section of DNA.
How many bases again?
What does it say? 557 to 55. It looks like it's about what, like at least a megabase or so.
1,000.
100 kilobase. 100 kilobase to a megabase. I'm not sure exactly. Yeah, I think it's about 100 kilobase.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's a very big. It's a pretty big chunk.
It's big enough. It's big enough. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, so I mean, like a pseudogene is going to be inside one of those. It's
pseudogenes are also there. So pseudogenes, synteny, and I see homology also.
But they're not factored in though. Is the thing is what I'm saying is that the pseudogene comparison is not being factored in. The homologous genetics, proteins, etc., is not factored in. This is just this big chunk of DNA, right? Matches this big chunk of DNA.
Yeah,
right?
so it looks like common ancestry, correct? So it looks like common ancestry.
They match. It just says that they match.
So they look like common ancestry, correct?
Well, so when you see that they're all in the same order and direction,
yes, I know.
That is something that could be used to imply common ancestry. You can compare it to the mouse on the other side, which is obviously in very different orders.
Yeah, okay. So can you give me the numerical pattern from, for example, gorilla to chimp and human? Two of the synteny arrangements, the numbers. How many mutations occurred in this generation, and then another?
Well, I mean, if you're talking about genetic synteny, the synteny is basically
Yeah,
exact.
it's there. It's the numbers. The numbers are there, Crispr. You have to speak a little louder. Sorry, I can't hear.
I'm sorry. I think that you're misunderstanding what it is that I'm showing. Because if you're talking about genetic synteny, right, the degree of synteny between humans and chimpanzees and orangutans and gorillas and all the rest, it's basically the same, right? Because when you're talking about such large sections, right, you lose some resolution, so you're not as able to see the fine grain changes, right? So I think that either you're not understanding what I'm showing or you're not being sufficiently clear in your question, because like I don't know what numbers it is you want me to show you for chimpanzee versus gorilla. It's the same numbers. It's beginning to end is syntenic with human for both.
Synteny, what do you call that again? Creates arrangement patterns, correct? Do you not know?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Synteny creates numerical arrangements. Do you not know? And by the way, this is not the only one. There is another one. If you don't know, the lineage specific. The synteny between human. This is gorilla, correct? This is human and chimp. There's also synteny in this line. There's another synteny in this line.
No, it's the same. It's the same synteny.
No, it's different. You don't know this. It's in Dr. Venomous book. Anyway, here's okay. I will not deny it looks like common ancestry.
No,
I'm still fair to it.
I'm sorry. You're saying that there's a different synteny between humans and
chimpanzees
and humans
and
gorillas?
No. I'm saying there is a different map generated based on this one.
Based on which one?
This is not the only one. This is not the only one.
Based on which one?
Okay. All right. When I looked at this a long time ago, yes, it looks like a common ancestry. But since
this is chromosome 2, this is just chromosome 2.
Oh, so chromosome 2 comparisons, correct?
Yeah. So I could pull up chromosome 3 or 4 or whichever other one you want.
Yeah, there are also synteny there, correct?
Yes, all the way down the line for all of them.
Yes, I cannot directly refute that. It looks like common ancestry to me also when I look at it from my unbiased side. But do you know the new creationist research that is going on right now about this synteny thing?
I mean,
do you know we also predict this pattern?
I'm sure that you would predict this pattern given the fact that this pattern had already been observed prior to you making the prediction. It would be rather silly for you to make a prediction other than what's already been observed if it's already been observed.
I don't think you're getting my point, Crispr. I'm saying that let's say a retrodiction, not prediction. Maybe it's the wrong word. In what creationists are doing right now is trying to link up gorilla, chimp, orangutan into one family. Do you know that?
They're already, so like the way that they're already defined by a creationist is already in one family. Like
but this one
Linnaeus defined them as being in the same group with humans when he did it, and he was a creationist.
Okay, I cannot remove. Okay, if let's say for example humans are really different, but I know the human part is also here in this map. So let's pretend for a while we remove the human. Okay, by the way, I'm not denying this looks like common ancestry, but here's the thing: if we remove human and then there is gorilla, chimp, and orangutan are proven to be of one same family, then these do not threaten creationists, correct? These are the same patterns we retrodict or predict, whatever the English is. Am I correct?
Well, I imagine that if you're going to be, trying to fit data to the your model to the data that's already commonly available, you're going to have it match. That's just standard practice. Like if you come up with a model that doesn't match things that everybody already knows, that's a bad model. Like if you ask me like to redo a model of mathematics, and my model of mathematics doesn't have 1 + 1 = 2, I've screwed up. So everybody already knows, has always already known, that gorillas, and chimpanzees look pretty similar, probably grouped together. So if your model doesn't do that, that's bad for your model. But it's not a predictive power of your model.
Yes, I know. Our model will have to show that the gorilla DNA compared to the chimp and the what is the other one again? Gorilla orangutan. They will have to show little genetic differences compared to one another, and then yes, little, and then to another kind, a different kind of animal, we will have to predict that that the genetic differences should be bigger. Correct?
Yeah, if you want to show that other animal is an outgroup, then yes.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have that data yet, but we're working on it. So I would like to ask you to be open-minded and check our data someday. But here's the thing. I know this.
But we already have the data for all 4 great apes.
Yes, I know.
They're really close to one another, and humans and chimpanzees are the closest. And then gorillas a little bit further off. I mean, this is like, if you're going to try to put humans as the outgroup, you've got a pretty heavy lift in front of you.
Sorry, I said I just pretend the human is already not. I did say we just pretend for a while that the human is not over there. It's not included in the group.
Then throw in anything. Throw in gibbons. I mean, and then your job is done.
Wait,
right. So let's pretend.
Let's
pretend. Let's pretend humans are out.
This Crispr. Sorry, are you done?
No, I'm just agreeing with you. Let's pretend humans are out, right? You have the other 3. Use gibbons as an outgroup, and now you're done. You've shown that gibbons are more distantly are less genetically similar than the other 3 great apes. The 3 great apes are very close to each other. Gibbons are not. There you go. That's it. That's all you need. That's it. You're done. What's left?
Well, what's left is I just proved evolution already. What the hell are you talking about? I've already provided empirical evidence.
I'm talking with him now.
What the hell are you talking about? You still carrying on about evolution? I provided scientific evidence for four distinct processes that prove evolution false, and you're still carrying on about this crap.
So I'm not sure. So the 2 of us were talking, and then you jumped in and started talking about something unrelated.
So why are you still talking about evolution when it's been disproved? What
because
the hell?
Everybody else understands that your arguments are terrible, so we're ignoring them. Now, Jeremy, if you'd like to continue, that'd be fine.
May I ask a question? So you do understand what I'm talking about? If we just pretend for a while, right now we don't have enough DNA data to infer that humans are really related to those. We're only basing our knowledge. Yeah, you can dispute that. I understand.
No, I was agreeing with you. I was just saying, yes, I understand. Continue.
Yeah. Where was I again? Damn. Yeah. Our data today is only less than 5% of the DNA. Don't you agree with that?
No.
So your this one, which is linked to humans, is only based on less than 5% of our DNA knowledge right now. No. So let me give you an example. It suddenly came into my mind. Are you familiar with the gosh, I forgot again. Damn it. The what's that again? Olfactory receptor genes. Are you familiar with that?
Vaguely.
Olfactory receptor.
They're the sensories for smelling. The olfactory.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'm sure that both me and Crispr are somewhat familiar with them.
Sure. Vaguely.
It is a human gene that is shared among forgot which humans and primates have it. Am I right, Matt? Wrong, Matt?
Yeah.
Humans and primates have it.
Mice have it as well, and yeah, they're fairly well conserved genes. Yeah.
And when you compare their olfactory receptor genes with one another, it would, and even the chromosome, if I'm not mistaken, I forgot exactly, sorry. They would also show the same hierarchy, the same map you produce, by the way. It
You
shows
mean
a nested,
synteny?
yeah, synteny, sorry, yes. Actually,
You mean synteny, or do you mean that they phylogenetically
sorry, I can hear.
sort? Do you
Hello?
mean synteny, or do you mean that they phylogenetically sort?
Synteny.
Do you know? Okay, so
We
you use that
even
word a
compare it
lot.
different.
I just want to
compare it different.
I want to sort of back up here. Do you what do you think synteny is? I'm just wondering, just so I make sure that we're on the same page.
Simple arrangement of the
Chromosome.
that again.
Like
It is the
chromosomal
arrangement, the organizational pattern. There's a 369 pattern of mutations like that.
No, that's okay. That's not what synteny is. So
Yes, that's synteny.
Okay.
That is the exact word used by Dr. Dennis Venom.
I know you think that, but
Dr.
that's not
Dr. Dennis Venom's book used exactly the same words. Did you read his book?
Okay, but I don't really care about his book. So
he's one of the best evolutionists in the world.
That's great. I've never heard of him.
Really?
So
am I talking to Crispr, right?
Huh? No, you're not talking to Crispr. So what synteny is that it means that that a bunch of loci in one organism match up to a bunch of loci on the other with another organism, and they're arranged the same way. It has nothing to do with mutations. It has nothing to do with that. And I think you've been mixing that up a lot, so it's been making it confusing.
You just described what I just said. I said it's the arrangement. I even show you like this.
But you mentioned all this shit about mutation that has nothing to do with it. You could have a perfectly conserved region. It would be synthetic.
Sir. Mutations in pseudogenes are included because they're all over the place. I don't think you are familiar with your own literature.
That has nothing to do with synteny.
So the thing you have to understand is that synteny is looking at big chunks, right? It doesn't.
I already said I do not deny it looks like common ancestry.
No. It has nothing to do with that. It's like, let me put it this way. Okay, let me put it this way. Think about if you have a library, right? You've got a bookshelf. Okay. You see the order that.
Hello.
Can you hear me?
Who said that?
Okay, so look. If you've got a bookshelf and you got a bunch of books on your bookshelf, and all the books are in a certain order, okay? Somebody else has a bookshelf the same size. They have all the same books, right? The books are all in the same order. That's synteny. Now, maybe one of the books on the other shelf. One of the books on the no one cares. But the thing is, what you're talking about with the pseudogenes and the mutations and all that, those are the contents of the books. Nobody cares for synteny. Nobody cares about the contents of the books for synteny. They're only looking at the books themselves. They're only looking at the spine. That's it. It's the only thing they care about is what's on this spine. Are these spines in the same order? No one cares about the contents. Nobody cares about the pseudogenes. Nobody cares about mutations. It's just the big chunk itself, not the contents.
That is why during the start of this debate, I asked the question, what are the 4 categories in which smart evolutionists are using and integrating? I don't know if you know that they are also integrating these. What are the 4? And the 4 methods are homology, synteny, pseudogenes, and redundancy. And they are lumping them up, comparing them. For example, there is a synteny here, and there are pseudogenes here. They are now comparing it directly. Did you not know this?
Yeah, I don't know where you're getting your information.
I would like to recommend you read the Dr.
Source.
Dennis Venom's book.
I would recommend that you stop reading stuff from him because he doesn't sound like he knows what the fuck he's talking about. Sorry, Standing.
He is one of the best evolutionists in the world.
How do you spell his name?
Venema.
What's his first name?
Dr. Dennis Venema.
Dennis Venema. Google Scholar. We're gonna see what his actual. Okay,
So
he doesn't have a
because you
Google
don't know,
Scholar
you don't believe him
page.
anymore.
Well, I mean, I don't. I mean, you just keep throwing out his name as if he makes up the entirety of
No,
evolutionary scholarship. But to be honest, I'm looking at his. I'm looking at his page. I'm looking at his website on Trinity University, and he's or is this TW? What the fuck is this? Trinity Western University. He there's no actual research listed in his publications. So how is he one of the top?
He had a paper in 2004 and a paper in 2006.
So he's published less than. So he's published less than me, and he's being claimed as some huge authority. I'm kind of confused.
Yeah, I think that I'm pretty sure that between Sam and I, we have about 5 to 10 times the number of publications that this guy
Can't hear
does.
very well.
Yeah,
Sorry,
I have more public. I have more public. Both Crispr and I have more publications than this guy.
So you are challenging a fellow evolutionist?
Sure.
A Christian evolutionist.
Sure. I don't think what he's saying is correct.
So you don't know that they lump these four categories up? Are you saying you don't know?
More to the point. I don't know that your understanding of what he's saying is correct. Because I haven't read what he's actually saying yet.
What Ben am I saying? I don't know. Are you saying that?
Yeah, I'm not sure you really absorbed the basic biological concepts going on there. And I don't know of any good non-textbooks for introducing this topic, but I mean, we're kind of talking about a guy who you can hoist him up on your petard, but he is not one of the top evolutionists out there. I hate to say, if you look at
then why do atheists? Why do atheists?
Just as an example, my
book let me give you
why co-author on more than 1,000 times the publication. No, I don't know. Then what? No, 100, at least 500 times the number of publications.
Then why do most atheists borrow evidence from biologos?
I don't. So I don't know. I've never heard of anyone doing that. Crispr, have you heard of anyone?
I don't think that any atheist.
They frequently show biologos. Do you?
I've never encountered someone who does. I don't know why you're hoisting this guy up. He seems to be a fairly minor.
Can I?
I everybody? Is I everybody? Is I everybody?
Just let me say something.
So it becomes an opinion. May we go back to the topic, please?
Well, you brought this up. Let me just say.
Yeah, you were challenging my symphony without studying Venema's book.
Well, I don't give a shit about Venema's book.
I already said it looks like common ancestry. Are you not happy? I already said it looks like common ancestry.
Why
are you not happy? I already said it.
Why
are you not happy?
Why should we care about Venema's book? He just seems to be one fairly fringe scientist. I don't really know what's going on here. He's just one guy.
Hear very well.
Why do we care about Douglas why does Dennis Venema matter? He just seems like one fairly obscure scientist.
It is not only Venema. He is a student of Dr. Francis Collins, the former head of the Human Genome Project. They have the same.
That's great.
His book, contents of his book, a lot is in Venema's book.
That's great.
So you don't know. I really don't understand why you don't know about this.
Because he's really an obscure scientist who has published.
Can we get back to the point, please? Where was I? Where was I? I forgot where I am now.
Well, where you were was expressing that you don't seem to really understand how this stuff works. So
you just explained what I explained. I only explained it for basic people to know. Do not try to manipulate my weak English, bro.
It's not because of English, man. It's because you started talking about mutations when you were talking about synteny, and those are just
the mutations to the synteny.
But Venema is wrong, is what I'm telling you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you're smarter than him. Okay, you're smarter than him. So maybe get back to the point. Wow, this is an incredible pride. Wow.
No, I can't speak to his intelligence. I can just speak to him either giving a sloppy explanation, or
Yeah. Well, the scientists describe algorithms in DNA as just sloppy. They're such sloppy scientists. They can't be true.
About as sloppy as your speech right now, Neff.
yeah, Neff, like
Sloppy
too few.
scientists.
You were good 2 beers ago. Like let's
No,
chill.
I'm not
here.
drinking beer. Okay.
And
Sloppy
what is with the slurring?
I'm not slurring. I lack front teeth in my mouth. Okay.
Whatever you say,
You
sweetheart. Whatever
Okay,
you
so
say.
sloppy scientists, it's all sloppy,
You are
It
one
can't-
generation behind the evolutionary world.
It can't be true because they're all the scientists that provide evidence that, DNA is information linguistics and algorithms. It's all sloppy science. Wow, so sloppy. They're so bad. The only scientists in the world that are any good at anything are evolutionist scientists. They're not the sloppy ones.
Sam did say he didn't know who that guy was. So
Yeah, I said I can't speak to his personal intelligence. I can just say that that's a really sloppy explanation of how synteny works, and it's not relevant.
Because you do not know how to link it with the other studies. You only see
I mean, I
synteny
do,
as something separate.
because
Completely
unlike
separate.
Venom, I'm an actual active researcher. So I don't
Do
know
you know
why
how to compare a synteny map? Do you know how to compare a synteny map into a pseudogene map?
What?
What's a pseudogene map?
Well, just a random map. For example, you have a synteny of this.
Crispr, have you heard of a pseudogene map?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that bit of terminology.
Oh, by the way, all my opponents are drunk. They've been drinking so much beer, they can't elucidate anything. That's how I know they're wrong. Because evolution is true because my opponents are drinking.
No,
don't worry, Neff. I'll make sure to brush my teeth after this conversation as well.
Yeah, brush your teeth because you can't have a genetic disease that causes gum hairs.
Crispr?
So what you say can't be true because you're missing a tooth. Oh.
Crispr.
Creationists are bad scientists because they might be missing a tooth.
Yeah, I remember what I was talking about already. We actually found this, found these, THESE. Sorry for my English. Found these in different creatures. But I'll just give an example of how these studies, which you have to be aware of this if you're really updated, because these are bits slowly but surely removing bits and pieces of your genetic markers in DNA. Not a significant. Even if this, for example, this particular pseudogene that links a human and a gorilla, if it gets if because of this new evidence it gets removed, it still looks like common ancestry. So creationists and the scientific world needs to show more examples of the example I'm about to show you now. But it is slowly tearing apart the nested hierarchy in DNA. What you thought looks like a pattern may not be a pattern at all. The first refutation I told you was the DNA also has to prove that humans are extremely unique from the rest of the gorilla ape chimp lineage. That's one. And creationists have to prove that their genetic differences are also close together, so that they can be lumped into a kind. And then after they've been lumped into a kind, the problem will the weight of the problem will be less for creationists. I do not disagree. It looks like a common ancestry. I am honest. I am not biased. I think you already know that. Now, there are several examples. I'll use this one because it's commonly used. I don't know if Witt used it. I don't think Jackson Witt used it. So it's called the olfactory receptor genes, and it shows a nested hierarchy, which would match your map, CRISPR. Actually, this looks like cherry pick data, but bits and bits of these will slowly tear apart your phylogenetic tree, genetic markers in DNA. That is why most researchers have concluded that we don't know, even Dr. Collins, the smartest man in the world, probably. He even said that we know less of we don't know really. We were wrong before about junk DNA. We were wrong that we thought that the DNA is It's full of pseudogenes. Even though pseudogenes, 80% are found to be function, but most of them are still what you call that, still being regular double tested. And we also got a pseudogene in one of the universities here, and I do help the professor sometimes look for pseudogenes. Good. So sorry, I won't prolong this. So one of the many examples are the what was that again? Roman, what was that again?
Can you paraphrase? Because I'm kind of getting lost as to what you're trying to get at.
Roman, was all what?
Olfaction. Olfaction.
Oh yeah. Sorry. The olfactory receptor genes. It shows a hierarchy, just like in the symphony that Crispr showed. This olfactory receptor genes is shared between humans and primates. And actually, there is a this olfactory receptor genes, as I recall, is also found in.
They're also found in
fruit fly.
What point are you trying to get to, man? Because you're kind of wandering all over the place.
A while ago, I think you went to the CR or something. I don't want to repeat myself. I think CRISPR. I am only trying to make a point to CRISPR, not you. All right. This olfactory receptor genes are also found in fruit fly. Yes, fruit fly. Correct. So, Mr. Romat, if I'm wrong, so please clarify. That at first they were so sure, 100% sure, just like junk DNA during 2001, that these olfactory receptor genes are a broken gene. But in fact, research now has shown that this pseudogene is functional, and it is not its function is clear. It is not in dispute. It not only what do you call that? Sorry for my English. It not only produces a functional protein needed for the what do you call that? The organization or fine tuning. These functional proteins are needed for the functional fine tuning of the odor detection, the smell detection. And it is only produced in what is that again? It is only produced in the specific neuron cells. Which neuron cells? Yeah, I think it's, I forgot. I'm not sure. Neuron cells where it is required. So bits and pieces of your genetic markers in DNA are being torn apart. This is a very slow process. This is a so slow process. But if these data keep on coming in the future, right now, your common ancestry tree genetic markers are in the lead, but your lead is not so big over creationists, because if we keep on finding these examples, then the markers that connect this species to that species, or from this species to that species, if for example that function is found in the middle of what connects this species to another, then these two are not related after all. Okay? So that will be it. I do not disagree. The common ancestry genetic markers are strong evidence, but it is based on less than 5% of the DNA language. And we don't call evidence based on less than 5% of something. It will be thrown out in court immediately if we present this. So the court will say we will have to wait for 100 years before we conclude what this really is. But I do not deny it looks like common. But I do not deny it looks like common ancestry right now. Happy? Okay, that will be all. I rest my case.
So I have a question. Do you know why?
Wait, I'm busy. I'm busy.
No, let's just let him end it on him agreeing that everything looks like common ancestry. I think that's a great place to let this stop.
I'm really genuinely confused by what he just said.
Does
that make any sense to anyone? Because does he realize the reason we don't do? I mean, the basic reason why we don't do pairwise genome-wide alignments is simply because, as you found out recently, CRISPR, It's hard to align multiple sequences.
Yeah.
It takes a lot of fucking time. That's why we limit the scope of these screens.
I threw it in the side. That's what he's getting this from.
What is this?
He threw out enough words that I was able to piece together what
So even
where he was getting from.
Even after I told you guys that it looks like common ancestry, you still want to argue? How biased can you be? I already said it's strong evidence.
We're not arguing. We're just kind of remarking on how that didn't your spiel didn't really make too much sense, and also the reason why we can't align like huge portion of multiple genomes is just simply because of how slow the algorithms are.
And yeah, I agree. Okay, but
that's just a physical
I want to
fact.
ask too. So over here that although your genetic markers look like common descent, even when I look at it now, there are also things that is completely going against the common ancestry. There's also one evidence which you develop rescue device too, which completely doesn't look like common ancestry at all. So there's these sets of DNA that look like common ancestry, but there are also these sets of DNA that do not look like common ancestry. And I think you heard that my explanation on that, Crispr. It is for example, the genetic markers of whales. Their echolocation genetic markers, and I can provide other examples because this is the most popular example.
Well, that's really easy to refute.
Their genetic sequences are precisely alike with something with an animal that is completely not in its lineage, not even close to its lineage.
That's actually
how did it happen? How did it evolve at the same time?
That's actually exceptionally easy to refute.
Did you predict convergent evolution? Did you predict convergent evolution? Give me a paper that predicted convergent evolution.
Convergent
and
evolution.
By the way, no, I'm talking about the genetic markers itself, not just the
Let me finish
homology.
the thought. Let me finish the thought. Convergent evolution is a prediction. It has been for a long time. If you have a shared homologous protein in two distantly separated clades that later comes under an identical selective pressure, you would expect it to take on the same selectively advantageous mutations, which is exactly what you see in the case of bats and echolocating whales.
Crispr, you're missing the point. There are sequences. You're talking about one portion. I'm talking about an entire sequence of echolocation markers, not just one specific area.
It's just Preston.
Have you seen echolocation markers?
It's Preston. It's just Preston.
Did you see it?
Yeah,
No. There are sequences beside it. There are sequences beside it, and when you compare it to the bat, they are precisely the same. It's not only that. There are more. There are more.
When you compare the non-protein regions, they're not the same. It is the protein regions that are the same.
Crispr,
the coding regions.
I'm talking about the genes, from the nucleotide level, from the nucleotide level, from the SNP levels.
The thing is, man, I know what you're talking about.
I understand your bias. I understand your bias. So let me get this thought out.
Let me get this thought out. I know what you're talking about better than you do because I read the articles, not just the abstracts, not just the creationist paraphrasing.
No, this is not the creationist interpretation.
I read the actual stuff.
This is not a creationist thing. This is in your literature. Come on. This is even in books now.
The stuff I've read is what's
even
in literature.
Richard Dawkins said maybe aliens did it.
Okay, so you're gonna quote him out of context from the movie Expelled. How does that equate to scientific literature?
It is his theory. I'm not quoting him. I'm just saying.
You realize that Dawkins hasn't published in like 30 years. He's not really relevant if we're talking about active scientists, in the same sense that Venema is not relevant if we're talking about active scientists.
Anybody who's who's an evolutionist but who is open-minded, it is not relevant. Okay, I get your point.
No. So someone like here's an example. Francis Collins.
I was being
Francis
sarcastic.
Collins. I can't tell. because you say really dumb things normally, so I can't tell if it's sarcasm.
Thank you
Like
for
being
showing
shocked.
your bias. Thank you for showing your bias.
I mean, what is my bias that I've
Woo!
observed your behavior?
Hey, by the way, Sam, one more thing. When you were talking to what's his name again, Neff, you told him his worldview is collapsing or something, and you said it was sarcastic. I don't believe that. I think you mean it. You mean to say that his worldview is collapsing or has collapsed, correct? Now, let me ask you this.
No, I was being sarcastic.
Let me ask you this. Did you see how the DNA, RNA and protein work? Did you see? Did you observe them in the lab?
Yeah, I do research on gene expression
Does it
regulation.
look designed or not? Does it look designed or
No,
not?
it doesn't look designed. It looks very messy.
All the top evolutionists agree it looks designed. Even Biologos.
Biologos isn't comprised of the top evolutionists, so I don't really care.
Oh, the founder of Biologos was the former head of the Human Genome Project, one of the smartest man in the world. They say.
I don't think that he's the smartest man in the world. I think he's a talented administrator and a pretty good geneticist, but I don't really.
Many evolutionists look to him. You know,
that's great. That's great for them, but from what I see in the lab, and actually Crispr has seen quite a bit of my data. Correct, Crispr?
I've seen a good amount.
But does it look designed, or does it look kind of like biology is a little messy?
The assembly line itself.
Biology is
the assembly line. Do you see the assembly line? The assembly line is. Does it look designed or not? Of course, you're not gonna.
No,
it's okay. It's okay.
It doesn't
it's okay,
look
it's
designed.
Okay. Here it is. Leading evolutionists, even Richard Dawkins, said everything is designed. But low-level evolutionists who cannot admit design. Okay, we see. You can go read their books. I don't need to quote them.
I've read most of Dawkins'
your bias. Oh, what about the eye? Does it look designed or not? Are you gonna tell me that in what Richard Dawkins said in his book about that? I've read all the evolutionary books, probably more than you ever did. I'm a former atheist evolutionist. Did you read his book?
Evolutionists need to explain why they
bias.
They need to explain why they deny that DNA is information, linguistics, and algorithms, because that's what the science papers say they observe in the DNA molecule: linguistics, algorithms, and information. So why do you guys deny it? Is it not because this smacks of design? Isn't that true?
I'm sorry.
Won't you acknowledge, I asked the question a long time ago. I asked the question, if DNA is actually information, linguistics, and algorithms, would that not be evidence that it was a product of intelligent design? And I never got an answer to that question. So I'm going to ask it again.
Do you mean if it's literally a language?
If DNA is a language.
Neffy, I'm not like you. I don't require to repeat myself multiple times.
If it is these things.
I understand you're not of average intelligence, so this repeating must be very soothing.
Would that not be evidence that it was designed?
Are you saying if DNA was a literal language?
No, you're trying to qualify. The question is simple. Okay, if DNA.
Well, no, I'm trying to clarify it. Like, I don't know why you can't just say DNA, yes or no, and you want to whistle through your
because
I don't really know what's going on here.
You're asking questions instead of answering. The question is this: if DNA is information which is organized linguistically that operates algorithmically, would that not be evidence of intelligent design?
If DNA operated algorithmically and behaved linguistically.
No, it's not what I said. I'll repeat it. If
you don't need to repeat it.
Well, you did. I did.
Heard.
Apparently, you didn't get it right. So if DNA is actually a physical medium encoded with information which is organized linguistically and operates algorithmically, would that not be evidence of a design?
I literally just said it operates algorithmically and it's organized linguistically. I just said it in different order.
So
you are so fucking stupid. Well, when you say it's encoded, that implies that someone encoded it. So that the way you worded it implies a designer. So yeah.
Okay, so the base pair's alignment along the ribose backbone of the DNA molecule is not determined by chemical necessity. So how could it is encoded? Because it's arranged. Okay. In other words, chemical necessity does not dictate that an A, C, G, or T is going to be at any location. It's nothing about the molecule, the ribose backbone molecule of the DNA. It can accept an A, C, G, or T at any bonding site. Any. Okay. But the DNA is code. So it's organized so that A, C, G, and T produce a code. Okay. That's fact. Okay. It's not chemical necessity. Chemical necessity does not determine the arrangement of base pairs along the DNA's ribose backbone molecule. It's not chemistry that determines it. Because at any point.
So we're on repeat 4 again.
Okay.
Are we going to cycle
the
to
question
repeat
is
5?
simple. Okay. If it's not true, if it's true that DNA is information which is organized linguistically and operates algorithmically, is that not evidence of intelligent design?
You just repeated the exact same question.
So can you answer it?
I already answered it, so you should be able to remember
you
what
didn't
my
answer
answer was.
No, you haven't answered.
I did.
Okay, so
I did already answer it.
No, you're evading the question. Can you answer?
Nope, I already answered it. You just have the inability to. You just lack the mental capacity to remember what my answer was.
You're
Okay,
afraid
how about
to
we
answer.
just end it with this? I think this is a good idea. Let Sam quickly answer it, and whether or not you guys agree that it's the correct answer, we call it a night, boys.
Oh, standing. I already answered it, so you can just end it.
No, you
All right,
didn't. He's
perfect.
evading the question.
Okay,
I
guys.
did already answer the question. He's just a dumbass who can't
Well,
listen.
everybody who hears this hangout's going to know what a goofy ball you are because you refuse to answer the question.
Yeah, and you're a duty head too. Like, what do you think your name calling is going to affect me? I'm going to wake up in the morning and I'm going to be fine.
Thanks for coming in and having your head squashed.
Okay, guys. Thanks for joining. Till we meet again. Bye.